You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 613. Chapter 613, Chapter 162's rules were a good thing. They could only be anxious. At this moment, the researchers from the Single Divine Language Department were all holding their breaths. They had actually been schemed against by a student. A large group of Ling Yun could only watch helplessly as they soared into the sky. They watched as the students went to register one by one. They watched as the students jotted down how many times they had won. They watched as the students discussed in hushed tones. Could they get the article of will? Get the hell. Jia Mingjin sighed, he smiled and said, "Let's go challenge them and see if we can get a few copies of the article of will. After all, they are senior students. Maybe old Zhou will give them face. If he doesn't, then those old fellows will lose face." They were the seniors who had acknowledged them as their teachers. Although those old fellows couldn't be bothered with them and felt that it was embarrassing, they were still master and disciple in name, right? An elder beside him didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You still want to get involved? Just watch the show. If our true identities are exposed, old Zhou will probably eat us. What does it have to do with us? Besides, aren't we students now? Jia Mingjin said indifferently, "Go, hurry up before old Zhou and the others arrive. This time, old Zhou and the others will probably really cry when they meet a shameless person." Sigh, if it were me, I would cry too. I thought that he would continue to fight. Even if he lost, he would lose in glory and grief. In the end, how did it end up like this? He shook his head and gave in. So people can be so shameless. So what if he's a genius? Who told you that geniuses must be shameless? Don't judge the new students with old ideas. Each and every one of them was sly and cunning. Their faces could be stepped on the ground to exchange for merit points at any time. This was nothing. The few of them were about to register when someone suddenly shouted, "Su Yu, I challenge you." Su Yu looked up and shouted, "Zhai Feng, are you crazy? I'm not in the top 100 students. Are you forcefully challenging me? Is the referee here? How are you going to punish the top 100 students for forcefully challenging me?" Zhao Ming scratched his head and felt a headache coming on. He shouted, "Zhai Feng, don't cause trouble. If you cause trouble again, do you believe that you will be caught too?" Zhai Feng felt like he was going to explode. This was too infuriating. Su Yu had fallen off the top 100 leaderboard. Su Yu suddenly said, "Did you challenge me in order to defeat me and get the article of will? You should have said so earlier. If you had said so earlier, I would have admitted defeat. Seriously, I'll count you in. I'll treat it as if I lost once before. Remember to look for your grandmaster to get the article of will." "You!" Zhai Feng said angrily, "Don't you have any sense of shame?" Su Yu laughed and shouted, "Admit defeat, next." "Zhai Feng, don't play this game with me, admit defeat, next." "Zhai Feng, if you have the ability to challenge all the students in the mansion, I'll admit defeat, next." He accepted the challenge while chatting with Zhai Feng. Zhai Feng really could not take it anymore. He was extremely angry and turned around to leave. Listening to him continuously saying, "I admit defeat, next," his heart hurt. At this moment, several auras rose. Chen Yong instantly restrained his willpower. He looked at Wuxia, who was still accepting the registration, and said in a low voice, "How many points have you collected?" Wuxia said in a daze, "Ah. How many points have you collected? Let me see. 8,523 points. Chen Yong's heart ached. So many points. Were the students that rich? Alright, each student only had 1 point. There were even people who had registered several times, but it wasn't too many. There were around 6,000 people who had registered. The academy had several tens of thousands of students. It wasn't too much, but fortunately, it didn't seem like all of them had come. You go first. Hurry up, go to the library pavilion and wait. Teacher. Quick, someone is trying to snatch us. Even though this item was within the rules, it was still within the gray area of the rules. It was best to be careful. 8,000 contribution points. This junior of his was really good at earning money. Furthermore, no one had scolded him for earning so much. It was only 1 point, and Suyu had already said that he might not be able to get it. Let's make a gamble. You should make a gamble on your own. Without anyone scolding him, he had earned the money and even left a huge mess for the single divine language department. More than 8,000 points. He, who was only at the 9th level of the Lingyun realm, had earned 10 years' worth of salary. He was the curator of the library. He was one of the higher-ups of the academy and was one of the top people below the elders. Every month, he could receive 50 merit points and 600 points a year. Adding in other benefits every year, it was about 800 to 900 points a year. Without extra income, that was 10 years of salary. Suyu only spent more than an hour. It was the same last time. After a fight, he earned tens of thousands of merit points. Ever since this kid came to the academy, why does it feel like the multi-divine literature department doesn't lack money to spend? Chen Yong began to doubt life. Was it really that simple to earn merit points? Why did his teacher go to the heavenly battlefield to kill great demons for a few thousand merit points previously? Just as he was thinking about it, an angry shout sounded. Silence. The match is over. Following the shout, a few figures flew over. Zhou Mingren frowned as he looked at Su Yu and Chen Yong with an ugly expression. Principal. Grandmaster. Principal. When the experts from the single divine language faction saw their savior, they were extremely anxious as they hurriedly greeted him. However, Su Yu was calm. He raised his head to look at Zhou Mingren. This was the first time he saw him. Previously, when Zheng Yuming was injured, he only saw a human figure. He didn't see the real person, nor did he see him clearly. His appearance was very good. He looked very refined. Of course, if he didn't frown, he would still be an old handsome man. He had the air of a sage, and he looked even more refined than Lu Wenyan. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 614. Chapter 614, Chapter 162 is a good thing 5. Is he Zhou Mingren? Is he the one who has been targeting us? Su Yu looked at him, and Zhou Mingren looked at Su Yu. This was the first time he had paid so much attention to a student who was not in the air. He looked so refined. This was also Zhou Mingren's impression. In a trance, he seemed to see Lu Wenyan from decades ago. At that time, Lu Wenyan seemed to be the same. He was neither servile nor overbearing. He had an elegant demeanor, and his talent was outstanding. Both parties were silent for a moment. Su Yu suddenly said, after the competition ended, I should have lost a total of 8,120 times. For those who did not win the registration, I will refund everyone's money later. Silence, silence. Thousands of students were very quiet at this moment. Su Yu said calmly, I've lost. If you need me to issue a certificate, I will issue a certificate to everyone. The referee is the notary. I've indeed lost. My skills are inferior to others. 8,120 times. At this moment, Zhou Mingren's heart almost stopped beating. He looked at Su Yu and said slowly, Su Yu, I said those words to urge the students to improve. Your nonsense goes against the original intention of the academy. Su Yu said calmly, I don't understand what teacher means. I'm injured, can I not admit defeat? The students are all powerful, and I can't defeat them, so I can only admit defeat. As for the rest, it has nothing to do with me. I'm only responsible for admitting defeat. I'm not going to ask for the debt. Why are you explaining to me? You owe me, so how can you just not give it to me? Anyway, everyone knows that we aren't on good terms. But now, you don't owe me. You owe thousands of students. At this moment, someone laughed and said, Principal Zhou, I want a copy of the will of the 10,000 Literature Sutra. It has to be at the peak of the mountain and sea realm. Otherwise, my grandfather will definitely be unhappy. Zhou Mingren looked at Jing Yunhui and stared at him for a while. Jing Yunhui had an innocent look on his face as he said embarrassedly, could it be that it's not? Then forget it, I don't want it. Seriously, I thought that I would really be able to get the will of the will if I won. Forget it, even 88th place will do. On the other side, someone mumbled, I want it, I won too, and it's still 3 times. It's not easy for me to win against Su Yu 3 times. Su Yu and Zhou Mingren looked over at the same time. Wu Lan did not care either. She had really won against Su Yu 3 times. Why? Couldn't she win? Zhou Mingren did not say a word. At this moment, he was filled with a myriad of thoughts. A headache. His head was as big as an ox. Suddenly, he asked, where are the others? Beside him, someone whispered, Principal, Chen Huan and the others, they were taken away because they interfered with the student competition. On the other side, the commander of the guards from before bowed and said, Principal Zhou, Chen Huan and the other researchers have expelled the participating students. The participating students, Su Yu, have reported us. We will act according to the rules. Zhou Mingren didn't say anything else. Act according to the rules. With just this sentence, he could not say anything. Because, this academy still had rules. The Great Xia Academy also had rules. If you did not follow the rules today, there would be people who did not follow the rules tomorrow. Idiot. He could only curse like this. As for who he cursed, he did not know. In the next moment, someone suddenly laughed and said, there are more than 8,000 books of will. Zhou Mingren, write 1 book a day. It will only take about 20 years. It's nothing. The entire academy will be grateful to you. Wu Yuehua came out. With a smile on her face, she smiled very happily. Su Yu looked at her and was slightly surprised. This aunt was quite good-looking. She looked to be in her 30s. She was valiant and valiant. She even looked good when she smiled. Of course, the main reason was that she seemed to be mocking Zhou Mingren. Su Yu was very happy that a big shot had spoken up for him. It felt great. Great aunt, I won 3 books. In the next moment, Su Yu knew who it was. Wu Lan shouted as if she was showing off. She was so happy that she couldn't be happier. She had won 3 of the essays of will. Ha ha ha, good job. Wu Yuehua praised. 3 books, it was a small matter. Zhou Mingren, this bastard, just you wait and cry. Dig a grave? I'll fill your grave first. There are more than 8,000 essays of will. Even if you don't pay up, you'll have to bear the consequences. Thousands of students watched as they exchanged blows. But they were filled with anticipation. They had to pay up. Even if they didn't pay up in full, there was still a chance that they could get some. Being watched by thousands of students, even if Zhou Mingren was knowledgeable, he was still a little angry and impatient at this moment. Pay up in the will's text. Pay up my ass. Where could they get thousands of pieces of the will's text? Could they really write for decades? At the same time, an old woman walked out and shouted, kids are fooling around. How can cultivation techniques be taught so easily? Disperse. On the other side, Chen Yong said sullenly, kids fooling around? Pavilion Elder Yu Hong, where are the thousands of students? There are all of them. Do you want the Great Xia Academy and the entire human realm to see our academy as a joke? It's one thing to lose face at home, but you want to lose it to the human realm and the myriad realms? As he spoke, he said in a low voice, the Myriad Races Academy must know about this as well. When we go back, we'll spread the word, that the Great Xia Civilization Academy's Pavilion Elder, no, Vice Principal, is this how it is? The old woman looked at him and said indifferently, Chen Yong, you also know that everything is an internal matter of the academy. Why do you have to make such a big fuss? Chen Yong said sullenly, forget it then. In any case, it has nothing to do with us. We don't have any benefits either. As for what the pavilion elders say, we'll just let it be. The elders did not say anything. This matter had become a huge joke. The few of them were also helpless. When Zhou Mingren said this previously, they did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. In the end, how did it end up like this? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 615. Chapter 615, Chapter 163 Words Can Kill, LRB Subscribe, 1. The arena was silent. The students looked expectant as if they were waiting for the prize. Would they give it? Even if they didn't give it to the Shanghai realm, they could give it to the soaring realm. Zhou Mingren glanced at the students, and after a while, he said slowly, tomorrow, I will write the war god technique, and the students can come and watch. Wu Yuehua said calmly, only the first 10 or 20 people in the Shanghai realm can learn the language of will. However, it's a good thing that Zhou is willing to teach for free. By the way, when will you pay for the rest? Even the language of will written by the Shanghai realm had a limit. If dozens of people read it once, it would probably be useless. Of course, if you wrote a Shanghai realm cultivation technique instead of the 1,000-stone realm, the others wouldn't even be able to see it. Zhou Mingren looked at Wu Yuehua. Preaching publicly was the solution that he had thought of. Even if the students were unhappy, they would still have the chance to observe it once to calm the hearts of the people. If no one objected now, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Wu Yuehua, is there anything that you can't say in private? Do you have to make a mess of the entire academy? Zhou Mingren sent a voice transmission and said somewhat angrily, losing the prestige of the mountains and seas in front of the students is not good for me or you. The mystic realm has opened. I can give you 5 spots. Zhou Mingren quickly sent a voice transmission. He wanted to solve the problem, but Wu Yuehua was making trouble. If this continued, the matter would only become more and more troublesome. Wu Yuehua looked at him coldly and sent a voice transmission, when you want to dig up Zhang Ruoling's grave, why don't you feel that you have lost your prestige? Zhou Mingren suddenly looked at her, his gaze fluctuating. He turned his head to look at the old woman, then looked at the elders of Sun Pavilion, and finally looked at the area of the Cultivation Heart Pavilion. Wan Tiansheng had taught her. He had mentioned this matter to Wan Tiansheng, and it was not surprising that Wan Tiansheng had guessed that it was Zhang Ruoling, because Zhang Ruoling's divine text was the most suitable for Xing Yiming. Zhou Mingren's gaze fluctuated. 10,000 heavenly saints. What on earth was he trying to do? Didn't he say that he would not interfere? Damn it. No wonder Wu Yuehua insisted on going against him today. It turned out that it was because of this matter. The surrounding students were originally a little excited after Zhou Mingren finished his public sermon, but when they heard Wu Yuehua's reminder that only 10 or 20 people had gained anything, they immediately began to worry about gains and losses. It was too little. 10 to 20 people. With so many people here, how were they going to compete for benefits? Su Yu did not say anything when he was speaking earlier. At this moment, he suddenly said, if Principal Zhou goes to the preaching area to preach once every day, a year's time would be enough. Zhou Mingren glanced at him but did not reply. A year? Once a day? Do you really think that writing the essay of will is that simple? Besides, is he fine now and spends all his time writing the essay of will? Ignoring Su Yu, Zhou Mingren thought for a moment and suddenly saw a person. His eyes lit up slightly as he looked at that person. On the other side, Lu Hong was still eating melons. But at this moment, he was suddenly shocked. Zhou Mingren's voice sounded in his ear, "Lu Hong, you have a lot of time to interact with the students. Think of a way to resolve the crisis in front of you." Lu Hong cursed in his heart. "Damn it, you want me to go? I'm just watching a show. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come here to watch a show. What a mistake. Once you solve this problem, the Sea of Consciousness secret realm will open. You can enter." Zhou Mingren spoke again. They had decided to let Lu Hong enter before, but he didn't know. Now, they could treat it as a reward for him to solve this problem. The elders of the Shanhai realm had only interacted with the students for a short period of time. For a moment, Zhou Mingren had forgotten how to solve this problem. Sea of Consciousness secret realm. Lu Hong's heart skipped a beat. This was a good place. Normally, this secret realm would not even open. If he could really solve this problem, it would be equivalent to saving the single God language faculty. After that, his position in the single God language faculty would rise greatly. Thinking of this, Lu Hong hurriedly transmitted his voice, "Principal, I'll try, but it won't bleed at all. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to complete it." "It's all right. We can use some resources." "Understood." The students were still waiting for the results. But at this moment, someone suddenly coughed lightly and walked out with a smile on his face. Su Yu saw the person who came and frowned slightly. "Lu Hong, that bastard. Why did this fellow step out?" "Students." Lu Hong walked out and shouted loudly, sighing, "This matter has turned out to be so unexpected. If this stalemate continues, it won't be beneficial to the students, the elders, and the entire academy. More than 8,000 books of wills, to be honest, everyone should understand that it's impossible for everyone to obtain them." Lu Hong said sincerely, "Everyone should be mentally prepared before the challenge. There are indeed some loopholes in the rules. Of course, defeating Su Yu will get you a book of will. This is not an official rule." Su Yu interjected, "Teacher Lu, do you mean to go back on your word?" Lu Hong smiled and said, "That won't be necessary. It's just that, if this continues, no one will gain anything. How about this, I'll make a suggestion and see if everyone can accept it." Lu Hong said loudly, "Next, in the Divine Literature Department alone, there will be 4 pavilion elders, 40 Ling Yun, 60 researchers, and more than 100 researchers. Every 3 days, they will write an essay of will in the mission area. In addition, they will also answer questions for everyone. It is not just limited to the essay of will. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories." Chapter 616. Chapter 616, Chapter 163. Words can kill too. Duration, 1 year. More than 100 researchers will bring everyone countless benefits. This is not something a book of will can compare to. Usually, it is very difficult for everyone to get such an opportunity. In the mission area, you can use the number of times you win today as your ticket. If you win once, you can participate once. If you win 3 times, you can participate 3 times. Previously, you've spent 1 merit point to win once. Now, with this 1 merit point, you can listen to the researcher's sermon. I don't think you feel that it's not worth it, right? Lu Hong said softly, "This is also the best solution. Otherwise, if you insist on wanting the essay of will, we can also give." The moment these words were said, the expressions of many people from the single divine text department changed. Lu Hong, however, smiled faintly and said, "We can give it to you, but we didn't say when we would give it to you. Dean Zhou also needs time to write a book. Under normal circumstances, even if you want to write a book every 3 days, then everyone, line up. In a few decades, you might be able to get it. Lu Hong said loudly, it's not that we don't respect our reputation or go back on our word. We won't. It's impossible for a single department of divine literature to do such a thing. Everyone can choose freely whether to attend the lecture in the mission area or wait for the article of will. Principal Zhou will write it as long as everyone can wait. The students looked at each other. Not to mention, it wouldn't be bad to attend a free lecture. Wait my ass. If Zhou Mingren wrote a book every year, they wouldn't be able to wait until they died. He didn't say when he would give it to them, but he didn't go back on his word. What do you have to say? They were just taking advantage of the situation. To normal students, they had already made a profit, so how could they have any objections? They felt that it was acceptable. In the crowd, someone felt Lu Hong's gaze and quickly shouted, I don't have any objections, teacher. Then, I want to observe the lessons of a Shanghai realm teacher. What if there are too many people? Lu Hong laughed, he said loudly, everyone, think about the pros and cons. There were fewer students flying in the sky and Ling Yun, and they were closer to your realms. Some things were more straightforward to talk about. You might not be able to understand the teachings of the elders of the Shanghai realm, so it would be a waste of this opportunity. Lu Hong laughed and said, it's up to you all to choose. If you all insist on taking the lectures of the Shanghai realm, then your gains will be too little. Don't blame me for not reminding everyone. With just a few words, this fellow had turned the matter of the article of will into a matter of listening to someone preach. In a year's time, a researcher could just go once in the divine language department. It wasn't too serious. As for the materials to write the article of will, whatever materials he wanted, he could just write them directly. He didn't plan to keep them for a long time. What he gave to everyone had to be something that could be kept for a long time. Of course, what he used for the class was something that could be written at will. On the stage, Su Yu's gaze changed. Lu Hong. This bastard. The elders indeed didn't understand the students. Their thinking had become rigid, and they felt that this matter wasn't easy to handle. All they had in their minds was the word rules. As for Lu Hong, this thing called rules had too many loopholes. The students didn't necessarily need the article of will. As long as they could take advantage of it, it would be fine. As for the other things, would they care so much? They were not people from the Department of Divine Literature. Previously, they only dared to put on this scene because they thought that the law would not punish the masses. Su Yu took a deep breath and quickly said, actually, this method is not bad. As I said before, if everyone participates, they can more or less get a chance to attend the lecture for free. However, I think that writing the article of will should give everyone some hope. For example, every time you write, you will use your blood essence and high-grade beast hide to write. The reward will be given to the student who performed the best on that day and improved the most. Su Yu smiled and said, this way, there will really be people who can obtain the article of will. It's not completely useless. The student who obtains the article of will also be grateful for today's kindness when they get results in the future. Lu Hong glanced at him. This kid still did not forget to dig a hole to make them bleed at this time. More than 100 books. If they really used blood essence to write, the cost would not be less than 10,000 merit points. This did not even take into account the researcher's willpower and the time spent in class. Su Yu looked at Lu Hong, he smiled and said, Teacher Lu said that if someone chooses to want the article of will, then give it to them. This is also good. I feel that there will definitely be someone who needs it. With fewer people, the elders will have time to write it. It won't be delayed. It's pretty good. Su Yu also said with extreme sincerity, I advise everyone, unless they have mountains and seas at home, or if they are certain that they want the article of will, otherwise, they should choose to attend the lecture. He really felt unwilling, so he sold this opportunity to the students who might get the article of will. Lu Hong said indifferently, Su Yu, are you inciting the students to trade in the black market? Buying and selling the article of will is illegal in the academy. Suyu smiled and said, Teacher Lu, you've misunderstood. I was wrong just now. The Halart art of war god is a cultivation technique that is publicly known in the academy. Everyone can learn it, so there is no such thing as a black market. Try. Everyone can find some students from wealthy families to borrow a copy of the text of YF. If you lose it, then use this opportunity to return it. It's a low. Everyone, please don't buy or sell it. The gazes of the students were strange. If they still didn't understand what he was saying, they were truly foolish. Borrow my ass. It was just a matter of borrowing. Who knew if they would be able to borrow it or not? If they turned around and said that they had lost it, they would use this opportunity to compensate the other party. Then, the transaction would be completed. As for how much they could sell it for, whether it could be compared to their last lecture, no matter how they calculated it, they wouldn't lose anything. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 617. Chapter 617, Chapter 163. Words of war can also kill 3. If the price is low, they can just go to the class. As for themselves, some people already know that they will definitely not get it. The two of them exchanged words, each taking advantage of the loophole in the rules. One said that there was no set time. One said that there was no deal, so they could borrow it to see if they lost the text of will. In any case, Suyu wanted to make the single divine text department bleed. Bleed a lot. Even if he could resolve this matter, he had to make them bleed. Who was afraid of who was more disgusting than them? At this moment, the pavilion elders had become the background, and they didn't say anything, allowing the two of them to speak. If they were to personally step down now, it would truly be embarrassing. Suyu, what you said won't work. Back then, you said that whoever beats you will take the article of will, transfer it, mortgage it. This won't work. In the academy, you can't trade cultivation techniques, mortgage, or transfer. If you really want to mortgage the transfer, that's fine too. You can pay the inheritance fee. Lu Hong said calmly, if you pay the academy, for example, the Aries art, you have to be qualified to pass it down once. Then, you need 100 merit points to be allowed to transfer the inheritance. As a student, don't you know that? Below, Xia Huyo felt a headache when he heard this. Did this mean that they were going to cut off his business? The students were going to pass it down to him and mortgage it to him, but he still had to pay 100 merit points to the academy. If that was the case, then what business was there? The cost was too great. Suyu smiled and said, I know, but the inheritance of the art of war has this requirement, because the art of war is a mystic rank and earth rank cultivation method. You said that it was an earth rank version, and I didn't say that it had to be the art of war. The 1000 June art is also fine. This is an open cultivation method in the human realm, and it can be passed down for free. At that time, you didn't specify which cultivation method, so everyone can have the Qianjun art, cultivation methods will text. Suyu said calmly, as long as the elders are willing to write the Qianjun art, or even the Yuan opening art, then it's up to them. It doesn't matter. Suyu added, it must be the mountain and sea realm, and it must be the peak. This is what you guys said before. You can't say that this is a mistake, right? Lu Hong looked at him, smiled, and cursed in his heart. This little bastard is really something. He has quite a thorough understanding of the rules of the academy. At this moment, the two of them were constantly talking about the rules. However, it gave many people the feeling that F***ck, why did it feel like the rules of the academy were made for these two? They could play however they wanted. In the Heart Cultivation Pavilion, Wan Tiansheng raised his head to look at the sky. Were there so many loopholes in the academy's rules that could be exploited? Were they so imprecise? Why did it feel like these 2B* stars could play it however they wanted? In any case, everything was beneficial to them. Rubbing his forehead, he was considering whether or not he should overhaul the Academy's rules and regulations. In the arena area, Lu Hong did not speak to Su Yu. He transmitted his voice to Zhou Mingren, "Principal, this fellow is very difficult to deal with. It's obvious that he wants some students to pass the opportunity to those disciples from large families. In the end, he wants the disciples from large families to come and find trouble with us. Most of the students will choose to attend the lecture, but I'm afraid some of them won't be able to." Zhou Mingren had also calmed down at this moment. Suddenly, he said, "Those students who are willing to attend the lecture can disperse. During the lecture, the researchers will say some unique insights that belong to themselves. Many times, it's not something that a few merits can compare to. If you are willing to wait, then you can also wait for me to write the essay of will." He looked at those students. Many of them were hesitant, but when they met his gaze, they were a little afraid. Soon, some of the students did not say much and left one after another. Originally, there were thousands of people, but now, more than 1,000 people had left. Moreover, when they saw that the others had left, some of the people who wanted to stay thought for a moment before hurriedly leaving. It was fine if they took advantage of him. Quit while you're ahead. If they continued to cause a ruckus, there would be nothing left. Moreover, they would be remembered by the experts. That would be troublesome. If there were too many people, there would be too many people. If there were too few people, then there wouldn't be too many people. In any case, they would have profited today no matter what. Su Yu was amazing. At this moment, many people also sighed with emotion. This fellow had cheated the single divine language department this time. All the researchers had to give a free lesson. Even though it was only a one-time lesson, some people might not be happy with it. Su Yu was not surprised at all that a large group of people had left. He did not feel that it was inappropriate. It was a good thing to quit when things were good. Those who stayed either had a background or were looking for an opportunity to sell this opportunity. If they did not have a background or strength, what was the point of staying if they did not leave? Being able to attend a free lesson and observe the article of will was considered a good opportunity. However, the people who left were actually not important. A large group of people with backers was what Zhou Mingren needed to worry about. He didn't know how much he had to pay to settle these people. After dispersing a large group of students, the pavilion elders of the Divine Literature Department also heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they also had a headache when there were thousands of students previously. Now that more than half of them had left, this was a good thing. Lu Hong was still somewhat useful. And when Lu Hong saw this situation, he smiled and said, "The other students, it looks like they are preparing to ask for the essay of will. The students have thought it through clearly and are not allowed to trade. It's fine to lend the 1,000 mass technique and origin opening technique, but once a trade occurs, the Academy will have a monitoring system behind them. When they are caught, all their efforts will be for naught. Not only will they get nothing, they might even receive punishment. Don't blame me for not warning everyone beforehand." After saying this, some of the students hesitated for a moment before quickly leaving. That made sense. The Academy had a monitoring system. Once merit points were traded, it was very easy to be swept away. At that time, they would really get nothing. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 618. Chapter 618, Chapter 163 Words Can Kill, LRB Subscribe, 4. There were fewer and fewer people. Su Yu didn't care. Since Lu Hong could speak so well, then continue. If you have the ability, make everyone give up on the article of will. At this moment, Lu Hong also had a headache. There were still 500 to 600 people who hadn't left. If they weren't Shanghai Realm students or Ling Yun students, they were either from the Demon Suppression Army or the Dragon Martial Guards, or they were the descendants of the big shots and big families. These people were the real troublemakers. One lecture wouldn't be enough to get rid of them. They wanted the peak of the mountain and see Realm's essay of will, which was worth thousands of merit points, or even thousands. One lecture to fool them? Dream on. Suyu had a smile on his face. This was the key. Even if they didn't need to pay thousands of books, how were they going to deal with these hundreds of people? Not giving them? Then they would have to wait to become enemies with the entire Great Xia Mansion's big families. It was too much to say that they were enemies. At the very least, these families would not have a good impression of Zhou Mingren. They could not help but curse in their hearts. If it really came to a critical moment one day, they might give him a knife. Suyu could not be bothered with what they were thinking. Suddenly, he said in a clear voice, "Let me ask, does it still count if you defeat me and reward me with an article of will?" It still counts. Then, we will continue in the future. If it doesn't count, then forget it. If you go back on your words, you have already done it. It's normal to change it day and night. Does it count? Nonsense. Of course it doesn't count. However, at this moment, Suyu was obviously going to slap people in the face. He asked the Single God Language faction to revoke this order. A mission to make things difficult for Suyu was passed down, but Suyu was fine. They almost fell into a pit. Lu Hong smiled and said, "Previously, it was to encourage everyone to improve, and also to let you, Suyu, improve. You guys, why do you insist on messing around? It goes against our original intention, so we'll forget about this matter in the future. Do you have the final say?" Suyu looked down at him. He asked curiously, "Are you the Seoul Divine Literature Department's branch head?" "Principal. Principal. Teacher Lu, it's not that I look down on you. As an assistant teacher, do you have the qualifications to speak on behalf of the Seoul Divine Literature Department? You can even revoke the order of the principal at will. Are you the acting principal? Acting principal? Or is it that something has happened to Elder Zheng and you are going to take over the position of the branch head?" Suyu said in shock, "Branch Master Lu, congratulations." Lu Hong almost wanted to kill him. "Branch Master your grandpa. Who the F***ck wants to be the branch master?" As for Suyu, with a thought, he smiled and said, "Branch Master Lu, it can't be because of what happened last time, right? Could it be that you guys lost 40,000 merit points and that counts as merit?" When these words were said, Zhou Mingren and the others frowned. What did he mean? If Suyu had said this before, they would have thought that he was farting, and Suyu would not have the right to speak in front of them. But now, whoever looked down on this kid now would be an idiot. 40,000 merit points. What did he mean? They did not lose 40,000 merit points. The only big expenditure they had recently was to buy some things with 100,000 merit points. That thing came from Suyu's side. Their expressions became strange as they glanced at Lu Hong out of the corner of their eyes. Before this, they had never suspected Lu Hong. But now, what did Suyu mean? Lu Hong cursed in his heart. 40,000 your grandpa. This fellow, Suyu, was like a broken jar that had been broken. Anyway, he had offended Suyu to death after this. He did not care about the matter from before being known by others. It was all the same. There was no need to hide it now. After today, it would be strange if Zhou Mingren and the rest could continue to coexist peacefully with Suyu. "Suyu, don't spout nonsense." Suyu chuckled and said, "What nonsense did I spout? I did not say anything. I will not do anything that does not conform to the rules. Don't mention it. I can enter the critical juncture and improve so quickly. I really have to thank all of you for your help. Thank you." Suyu jumped off the stage. He smiled and said, "I still have something to do. I'll be leaving first." I've been doing some research recently, so I don't have the time to spar or anything like that. Oh right, I'll have to trouble everyone to help me pass on a message. Our Wentan Research Center has completely derived the soul-devouring art cultivation method. It allows Yuan Qi to mutate and corrode and burn willpower. It will soon be auctioned off to the public, and it will be sold off in one go. This is a warrior Dao body cultivation method. It's not some willpower martial technique, nor is it some innate skill. Everyone, remember this well. To a warrior, it will be of great use against an enemy civilized master in the myriad heavens battlefield. We welcome the great Xia mansion, and even the people from the other manors to participate. We hope that this cultivation technique can be passed down and allow the strength of the entire human race to rise by a large margin. Next, I hope that we will have more divine literature, and the Wentan Research Center will become the center of the human realm. Some people have already made up their minds. If they come looking for trouble with us now, they might be struck to death by the warriors of the world. Su Yu laughed loudly and said, "As for the paper of will, you guys can ask for it yourself. I won't get involved. I still need to participate in the later stages of the experimental work for the derivation of the soul-devouring technique." Oh right, thank you for the 40,000 merit points. Although we only got half of it, it's enough. The derivation of the soul-devouring technique can't be done without the sponsorship of this money. Otherwise, it would really be difficult to succeed. Su Yu's white clothes fluttered as he left in a carefree manner. Chen Yong followed silently. At this moment, he seemed to have become Su Yu's student, standing behind him to protect him. The entire place was dead silent. At the next moment, Zheng Yunhui suddenly roared, "The soul-devouring technique can mutate Yuan Qi?" "Yes." Su Yu did not turn his head back as he replied. "How many openings?" 36 openings, not too many. Close to half of the overlapping openings. In other words, you need to open around 18 of them. That's about right. Zheng Yunhui's expression changed, and without a word, he ran away. Go home. Find the old man. Mutated origin technique. It could mutate one's Yuan Qi, targeting one's willpower. F***ck, what a great origin technique. It was difficult to open less than 20 additional apertures, but for geniuses, this was a huge opportunity to increase their strength, allowing them to have more means to deal with civilized masters. In the crowd, some people left silently. Some went to inform their parents, while others went to inform the forces behind them. This was indeed a huge opportunity for the path of the fighter. Zhou Mingren and the others also had flickering eyes. They could see Su Yu's intention. He would not come out early, nor late. If he announced it now, it was obvious that he wanted to focus the multi-god literature department under the eyes of the public. Were they worried that they would be retaliated? Zhou Mingren and the others did not say a word. Revenge. Let's talk about that later. The appearance of the soul-devouring art was destined to make the Wentan Research Center the center of attention. More importantly, if this cultivation technique were to be spread, what would be the pros and cons for them? Also, how would they deal with the remaining group of people? Zhou Mingren was just about to use this opportunity to leave when in the crowd, a young lady said timidly, "Governor Zhou, I just want 3 pieces of the will. I've only won 3 times. Su Yu asked me to win 10 times, but I didn't agree." The young lady had a frightened look on her face. When she saw Zhou Mingren looking at her, she was almost scared to tears. She said timidly, "I won this on my own. My father didn't give me any merit points, but he still wanted me to become stronger. I only have 3 merit points left, and I spent them all. Grandpa Zhou, are you going to go back on your word?" Zhou Mingren looked at her and felt that she looked a little familiar. At the side, a researcher quickly transmitted his voice, Director Ji's daughter, Ji Xiaomeng, the youngest one. Zhou Mingren remembered. That old fellow had a daughter, his only daughter. When she was over 10 years old, he invited experts from all over the world to celebrate his daughter's birthday. He liked her more than any of his sons. So it was this girl. Zhou Mingren's head was splitting. Bastard, Su Yu. Bastard. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 619. Chapter 619, the more he knew about Chapter 164, the faster he would die. 1. Su Yu no longer cared about the arena area. He quickly returned to the research center. Chen Yong did not say a word and followed him. After walking for a while and leaving the area, Chen Yong said in a low voice, "Today, we officially have a falling out." Su Yu turned his head to look at his Uncle Master and said softly, "Uncle Master, do you think that we still need to go into hibernation? It's not dormant, it's true that our strength is inferior to others." Chen Yong sighed. Su Yu nodded. As they walked, he said, "I know, but if we don't retaliate, they will become more and more outrageous. If this continues, we will really be finished." Taking advantage of the fact that Jing Yuming was heavily injured by the manor head and that the single Divine One faction had many misgivings, counterattacking now is the best chance. Chen Yong wanted to say something but hesitated. After a long while, he said, "Then we have to get your Grandmaster back." Speaking of this, Su Yu was also depressed. Why isn't Grandmaster back yet? Without the support of mountains and seas, he felt uneasy. It's all because of your master. Speaking of this, Chen Yong felt helpless. A new race has appeared in the heavenly battlefield. Their whereabouts are uncertain. Your Grandmaster went to the heavenly battlefield to search, but who knows where they went. The communication is not usable there. There's a world passage between them. Your master encouraged your Grandmaster to look for them before. Otherwise, your Grandmaster might not have left. After a few simple sentences, Chen Yong asked again, "Is the soul-devouring art true?" "It's true." Su Yu nodded and said, "Otherwise, I wouldn't dare to say it in public. Right now, I only hope that they won't act rashly. After all, they're not the only ones in the academy who are from the Divine Literature Department. There are many other factions as well." After saying that, Su Yu continued, "Uncle Master, I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. Although the single Divine Language faction is very strong in the academy, I feel that the other factions in the academy aren't weak either. They can't control everything with one hand." He felt that there was no need to worry too much. It wasn't as if the single Divine Language faction was in charge. Chen Yong hesitated for a moment before saying, "You're wrong. In the Great Xia Civilization Academy, the single Divine Language faction can't be in charge. However, in other academies, many experts of the single Divine Language faction are the prefects. The Divine Literature Department alone does not specifically refer to our academy, but to the entire human realm." Chen Yong sighed. Similarly, the multiple Divine Literature Department does not refer to us alone, but to the entire human realm cultivators from the multiple Divine Literature Department. Looking at the entire human realm, in a few decades, there would probably be less than 1,000 cultivators from the multiple Divine Literature Department. In fact, it would already be considered not bad if there were 500 people. As for the Divine Languages alone, just our academy alone has over 10,000 people, not to mention the entire human realm. Su Yu frowned and said, "The other factions are also surviving well. Some factions have so few people, even fewer than us. Why must they target us?" From what his martial uncle meant, they were not one faction. It was the entire human realm that was rejecting the multiple Divine Languages. Why was that? Chen Yong was silent. Su Yu frowned when he saw this. Could there be something deeper that he couldn't say? Chen Yong was silent for a moment before he said, "Go to the research center and say it. Call your teacher out and say it together." "Okay." A few minutes later, the two of them returned to the Wen Tan Research Center. When Bai Feng was dragged out of the laboratory, he was confused. What now? Senior brother, why are you here? Chen Yong looked at him sympathetically. As a teacher, you only have the right to know after the event. However, Su Yu quickly said, Teacher, I earned money today. I earned several thousand merit points. Bai Feng's eyes lit up. Earned money again. The next moment, his face darkened. How did you earn it? Who did you lie to again? Su Yu was speechless and explained, No, I went out to spar and lost. That's how I earned it. Bai Feng was at a loss and quickly said, Fake match? As he said that, he nodded and said, Well done. Back then, I, your teacher, also played a fake match. When we were fighting for the top 100 rankings, there were a few fellows who spent money to bribe me. In order to raise a few rankings, I also played a fake match. However, they usually didn't give much. Who on your side wanted to play a fake match and gave so much? Dark history. Beside him, Chen Yong's face changed. He couldn't help but scold, a few years ago, you played a fake match on the top 100 rankings. Bai Feng said matter-of-factly, what's wrong? I don't have the money to cultivate. So what if I played a few fake matches? Senior brother, don't be so pedantic. Chen Yong didn't know what to say. He could only feel helpless. It seemed that Su Yu wasn't the only one who knew how to play a fake match. Bai Feng's side had some signs. Sigh. He could only sigh. Su Yu coughed dryly and said with a smile, Yes, teacher, I also fought a fake match and lost more than 8,000 times. Bai Feng just looked at him like that. Kid, the moment you said those words, I felt that something big was about to happen. Under what circumstances could he lose more than 8,000 times? Su Yu quickly explained the situation briefly. Bai Feng looked at him for a while before saying, In other words, we have completely fallen out with each other, right? Yes. Oh. Bai Feng curled his lips and thought about it. He was not surprised, but he said gloomily, Idiot, wait for your grandmaster to come back and deal with him. Can't you just bear with it for a few days? Your grandmaster hasn't returned yet. It's not easy for us to take the blame, do you understand? As for falling out with each other, it was not a big deal. In any case, they were already fighting to the death. The key was that this idiot didn't even wait for his grandmaster to come back. Bai Feng said helplessly, Bear with it. Don't go out for a while. Let me tell you, these people might have evil hearts. Even if they're not evil and don't dare to kill you, someone will kill you. Let me tell you, don't think too highly of others. A bunch of people who call you brother, it's normal to kill you and frame them. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 620. Chapter 620, the more he knew about Chapter 164, the faster he would die too. There are also some spies from the Myriad Clan's sect who are eager to get rid of you and let your grandmaster fight them. Bai Feng said casually and exhaled, It's fine. Just stay in the research institute for the time being and don't leave the institute. There won't be much of a problem. Su Yu nodded. This was true. Even if the Divine Literature Department didn't dare to kill him, they wouldn't be able to stop some fellows who wanted to stir up trouble. Perhaps they also had such thoughts. I know. That's why I told you about the soul-devouring art and had the people from the fighter faction keep an eye on it. This way, everyone will have some misgivings. Did you get it out? Bai Feng said suspiciously, Don't fake it. It'll be the same as last time. I'm telling you, if you fake it again, you'll die a horrible death. Bai Feng was quite calm. He was a little surprised at first, but he didn't have any reaction after that. Chen Yong was dumbfounded when he saw it. It was such a big deal, and you, AB***, didn't take it seriously. He couldn't help but curse, Bai Feng, it's a big deal, understand? Senior brother, don't make a big deal out of it. Bai Feng said indifferently, we've been on bad terms for a long time. It's not the first time. It's not like it's the first time we've been holding it in. They're looking for trouble, so what if they counterattack? They're asking for it. Chen Yong was speechless. He let out a breath and said, things aren't that simple. Previously, Suyu asked me why the single Divine One faction has been targeting us. It's just resources. He's afraid that we'll turn the tables and steal their position again. *T. Chen Yong directly cursed. Bai Feng looked at him in a daze. What's wrong? Am I wrong? Chen Yong took a deep breath and said, you have to understand that the single Divine Language Department and the multiple Divine Languages Department are not referring to our academy, but to the entire human realm, the various great academies, and even other places, the military, and the Holy Lands. If it's for some resources and status, why is the entire human realm excluding us? Bai Feng, you have to know that it's not our family that is being excluded, but the entire human realm. The Great Zhou Manor and the Great Shang Manor are being excluded. Chen Yong said in a low voice, do you know? It's the entire human realm. Suyu furrowed his brows and said hesitantly, Martial Uncle, could it be a battle of ideals? If it was a battle of ideals, then this thing would be very troublesome. Between scholars, life and death feuds were nothing, but once there was a conflict of ideals, it would be a hatred that would last for generations. It was almost impossible to coexist peacefully without the extinction of one side. Ideals? Chen Yong shook his head. The ideals of civilized masters are to become stronger. What ideals, what conflicts of orthodoxies, they don't exist. Then. Why? This time, Suyu really did not understand. Bai Feng also asked in puzzlement, why, is there still a secret? Isn't it because we consume more resources than others? Is that why those bastards can't stand us and think that we are stronger than them, so they are targeting us? Chen Yong said in a deep voice, nonsense. Why didn't they target us a few decades ago? We're strong. Even the Divine Prose faction was strong at one time. At that time, at most, everyone looked down on each other, but it didn't reach this point. They insisted on suppressing us to the point that we couldn't raise our heads and even destroyed the inheritance. Bai Feng and Suyu were interested. Could there be another reason? Bai Feng thought for a moment and said, speaking of which, the reason for all of this is because of the battle of the fifth generation. It was only after our Grandmaster lost that we were targeted like this. Does that mean that even if there is some secret, it has something to do with the fifth generation? Chen Yong nodded slightly. After thinking for a moment, he didn't speak again. Instead, he transmitted his voice, the issue of the divine literature faction being targeted like this isn't a matter of ideology, nor is it a matter of resources. It's just a personal grudge. Personal grudge? Yes. Chen Yong transmitted his voice, it has a lot to do with the fifth generation. Suyu should also know about the deaths of the fifth generation, right? Suyu nodded. Chen Yong continued, that year, 3 unrivaled warriors died in battle. You also know about that, right? Suyu nodded again. These 3 unrivaled warriors, 2 of them came from the myriad races, and 1 of them was from the human race. Chen Yong sighed and said, the invincible one who died in battle came from the Great Zhou Manor. The younger brother of the Great Zhou King had just become invincible not long ago. His son is the current head of the Great Zhou Institute of Civilization. Back then, when the fifth generation attained the Tao, they did not invite the invincible one to help them in battle. The fifth generation was too arrogant, thinking that they could complete the attainment of the Tao. They only brought a few enthusiastic civilization masters to help them. Their purpose was not to help them in battle, but to let them observe the process of the attainment of the Tao. In the end, something happened. Not only did the polytheistic faction suffer, they even let the one who came to help die in the heavenly battlefield. The Great Zhou King did not say anything, but that person from the Great Zhou Civilization Academy was not on good terms with the fifth generation. His father died in the heavenly battlefield for the fifth generation. Do you think you would accept it? Chen Yong sighed. After that, the Great Zhou Civilization Academy began to reject the polytheistic faction. The Great Zhou King was silent, and the Great Zhou Manor head, Zhou Patian, also did not say anything. The Great Zhou Manor first started to reject the polytheistic faction. After that, the single-god literature department of the other manors followed up. They had the right to fight, some had a common enemy, some wanted to curry favor with the Great Zhou King, and some really hated the fifth-generation single-god literature department experts. In addition to the decline of the multi-god literature department, there were many factors that caused all the great manors in the human realm to reject the multi-god literature department. Chen Yong sighed and said, "That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is still. The fifth generation once left behind some information regarding the matter of civilized masters attaining immortality, as well as a divine text. The person from the Great Zhou Civilization Academy meant that his father died in order to save the fifth generation. These things were exchanged with his father's life. He requested that the information be made public, at least to him. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 621. Chapter 621, the more he knew about Chapter 164, the faster he would die. 3. Su Yu couldn't help but say, this. I should be able to show them. After all, they died to save the fifth generation. He didn't expect that there would be such a twist. When Bai Feng said that 3 unrivaled warriors had died in battle, Su Yu didn't think too much about it. Now, it seemed that it was quite complicated. An unrivaled expert of the human race had died in battle. Chen Yong smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "It should be given. But it's not. It's not. It's not." Chen Yong said with a headache, "The fifth-generation grand teacher has 2 students. One is Martial Uncle Lu Wenyan, and the other is our teacher, your grand teacher. Everyone knows that the divine text was passed down to Martial Uncle Lu Wenyan, but according to the outside world, it was passed down to us, but it's really not there." Chen Yong sighed. Teacher has also been searching for it. He has even looked through all of the information countless times, but there really isn't any. However, no one believed it. They all felt that teacher had taken it for himself and were unwilling to reveal it to the public. It can be imagined that this action could be considered to have thoroughly offended them. Chen Yong said, he said helplessly, "From then on, the Great Zhou Manor became the main force, forming a group of single divine text-based forces that specifically targeted us. Targeting the entire multi-divine language faction. Because of that battle back then, many experts of the multi-divine language faction from many academies went there. They were there to rescue the fifth generation, but also to rescue them. Weren't you wondering why we were suppressed when there were still experts of the multi-divine language faction back then?" Chen Yong sighed and said, "It was because of this. Because we were unable to show ourselves, unable to stand out. It was still better when they were alive, but after those experts of the multi-divine language faction died one after another, we were completely miserable." Su Yu frowned and said, "Martial Uncle, then let them come and find us. We really don't have it. Could it be that we can conjure it for them?" "It's useless." Chen Yong sighed and said, "People will only believe what they want to believe, and what they don't want to believe, no matter what, it's useless. Moreover, the many divine languages are declining, and the other party is like the sun in the sky. They only suppress you, and they didn't directly come to find trouble with you. What can you do?" Bai Feng said gloomily, "Is there such a thing? I say, I've been to the heavenly battlefield before. The Great Zhou Manor over there soared into the sky. When they saw me, it was as if they saw an enemy. Senior brother, why didn't you say this before? Chen Yong said unhappily, what's the use of saying this? Moreover, strictly speaking, we can't say anything about this matter. We are also very innocent. If we had the information, we would also be willing to provide a copy to them. But the key is that we don't have it. Bai Feng suddenly said cautiously, Senior brother, could it be that master has hidden it? Scram! Chen Yong cursed angrily. He looked at him with some annoyance. He said angrily, how could master hide it? It was true that there was nothing. Before the item was in our hands, many people had checked it, but there was nothing. Do you think that other people don't care about the information that proves that the Tao is invincible? The Quest State and the War God Hall are all very concerned about it. In the end, we didn't find anything. Chen Yong shook his head and said, but, Master said that there might really be something. What do you mean? Chen Yong exhaled and said, Master said that Grandmaster's things were a little less when he was alive. However, Grandmaster lived in the Heart Cultivation Pavilion when he was alive. When the relics were taken out from the Heart Cultivation Pavilion, many mountains and seas were watching over them. No one entered the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Moreover, Grandmaster had set up a divine array when he was alive, so no one could go in and steal it. Therefore, Master couldn't say it out loud. Anyway, there were a few items missing. There might be some information, but they were already lost. Grandmaster took them away or something. It has been decades, and there's no way to investigate it now. Chen Yong sighed and said, unless, someone went to Grandmaster's place in advance and took the items away. Then, they hid the information. We have to take the blame for this. Someone took it away in advance. Bai Feng hesitated and said, what do you mean? With Grandmaster's strength, apart from invincible, who else can enter the array set up by him? As soon as these words were said, Bai Feng's expression changed. Su Yu's expression also changed for a moment. He understood. No wonder Hong Tan didn't mention this matter again, and he didn't allow Chen Yong to say anything more. Who could take away the item of the 5th generation in advance? Invincible. After the 5th generation fell, if there really was information about them and they were lost later on, Invincible must have rushed here in advance to take them away. But how did the other party know that the 5th generation would definitely die? He was the first to rush here. After the 5th generation died in battle, he was quickly escorted back to the Great Xia Manor by the Great Xia Emperor. That meant that this person knew that the 5th generation had already fallen before the Great Xia Emperor returned. The three of them fell silent. Chen Yong fell silent for a moment. He continued to send a voice transmission. These matters involve a lot of things, so Master doesn't mention them anymore. After all, we simply can't withstand anything. Including the death of the 5th generation Grandmaster. If the information was really lost, then it means, you should understand. Su Yu and Bai Feng's expressions changed again. Predicting the fall of the 5th generation in advance? That's impossible. Then, there was only one possibility. Someone had plotted against them. A traitor. A traitor who could possibly be invincible. Chen Yong said sorrowfully, so, keep a low profile and lie low. Treat it as if you don't know anything. It's good to be suppressed. Teacher can't even make a breakthrough rashly, and he can't even enter the sun and moon. Once he does, the other party might suspect him and even worry about leaving behind any future trouble. Su Yu could not help but say, tell the higher-ups. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 622. Chapter 622, the more he knew about Chapter 164, the faster he would die. 4. Chen Yong looked at him and said sorrowfully, do you know who it was? Yes, who was it? Rashly telling others that he had killed them to silence them. Then we'll make a big fuss. Su Yu hurriedly said, a big fuss. Where's the evidence? Chen Yong regained his composure. Where's the evidence? Everyone will only think that we're shirking our responsibilities. We're trying to slander an invincible. We're trying to create internal strife among the invincible. You have to know that the front line is entirely dependent on these experts. Once there's an internal strife, can you bear such responsibility? Chen Yong sighed and said, I can't. Once the invincible humans feel insecure and suspect each other, when the other powerful races come to attack and the experts at the front line are at odds with each other, what do you think will happen? Therefore, even if you knew, even if you had a guess, you still had to hold it in. Unless you have concrete evidence to prove who it is. Only when the evidence is like a mountain can you turn the tables. The evidence is like a mountain. Chen Yong shook his head. Where did the evidence come from? He looked at Su Yu and said, so, this time, it might not be a good thing to completely tear apart the single Divine One faction. In my opinion, the single Divine One faction suppressing us is actually a form of protection. Su Yu frowned. Bai Feng said somewhat depressed, Senior brother, if we stand out now, we will die. If we don't stand out, we will die. If this goes on, the multi-divine text lineage will really destroy the inheritance. That's right. Chen Yong sighed, so, Master actually suspects, that person's shadow is also behind this. Of course, it's actually hard to say, because all the spearhead might be directed at the Great Zhou King, but the Great Zhou King doesn't have to do this. Master suspects that someone is using the Zhou family of the Great Zhou Manor as a cover, and there are still some people in the dark who are adding fuel to the fire. In a true sense, they want to destroy us and completely destroy the multi-divine text lineage inheritance. Bai Feng and Su Yu were silent. From what he said, it meant that if they stood out, they would be in big trouble. However, if they did not stand out, they would see the trouble of the many divine inscriptions. They were on the verge of extinction. Su Yu was also speechless. Behind this, there were actually many unrivaled experts involved. The Great Zhou King was one of them, the brother of the Great Zhou King who died in battle was one of them, and there was another unrivaled expert who might or might not exist. Su Yu scratched his head. Uncle Master, then the Great Xia King sighed. Chen Yong said calmly, the Great Xia King cannot be biased towards either side. The fifth-generation Grandmaster was determined to go his own way and died in battle on the heavenly battlefield. The Great Zhou Manor was implicated and an invincible person died in battle. What do you think the Great Xia King can do? In the battle of factions, you are inferior to the other party in terms of divine literature. If you fail in the battle, can the Great Xia King specially come and support you? You can't even defeat the other party yourself. Do you expect the Great Xia King to intervene and help you? He is the invincible of the Great Xia Mansion, the invincible of the entire human race. He is not invincible in terms of the divine runes. He also needs to balance the interests of all parties. He cannot completely follow his own preferences. Otherwise, his relationship with the divine runes is indeed not bad. He has a good relationship with the fifth generation. What a headache. Su Yu and Bai Feng looked depressed. Su Yu said, Uncle Master, are you saying that we should continue to be turtles? Chen Yong looked at him and couldn't help but laugh and scold, are you referring to the mulberry tree and the locust tree? Su Yu. Aggrieved. I'm not aggrieved. I just feel very aggrieved. Chen Yong said again, there's no need to cower. Actually, it doesn't have much to do with us. Even if the other party really exists, he's not paying attention to us, but to my master and Uncle Master Lu. Chen Yong exhaled and said, Uncle Master Lu has inherited the divine text, so he's probably also the target of the other party's attention. Therefore, it's actually a good thing for Uncle Master Lu to remain silent. Speaking up to this point, Chen Yong suddenly said, but now, Uncle Master Lu has broken through and soared into the sky. Su Yu looked at him and hurriedly asked, Uncle Master, what do you mean? Chen Yong rubbed his temples and sighed. Actually, I was thinking about a question earlier. Uncle Master Lu's breakthrough and the Myriad Clan sect's attack on the Southern Yuan, was it unintentional or intentional? Or is it that someone took the opportunity to observe Uncle Master? Su Yu blinked. What was going on? In that case, there might be more to the attack on the Southern Element sect. Bai Feng said in surprise, was there? There was trouble that time, so I rushed over immediately. Chen Yong glared at him and said, you were too late. You only went after Martial Uncle's breakthrough. No, I sped up and didn't stop for even a moment. I rushed over. Bai Feng explained, after Martial Uncle sent a message to the academy, I rushed over very quickly. There was no delay on the way. Chen Yong said indifferently, perhaps the time you arrived was also calculated. Before that, the Myriad Clan cult had already started. It can't be. Bai Feng said in surprise, this was an accident, right? Whether it was an accident or deliberate, who can say for sure? Chen Yong muttered, slowly, he said, let's not talk about Martial Uncle's side. Just talking about the academy has also made me feel like there's a storm brewing recently. I keep feeling like there's a big hand controlling everything. Jing Yuming is crippled, and the single Divine One faction has increased their strength to suppress us, including the Great Zhou Manor's side. The single Divine One faction's geniuses are challenging all sides, they're all creating pressure for us. The pressure is so great that we can't breathe. Chen Yong panted. A big hand is pushing us, trying to make us explode. I don't know what it means, whether it's intentional or not, whether it's that person who might or might not exist, or someone else. I keep feeling like we're at the mouth of a volcano right now. Someone's pushing. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 623. Chapter 623, Chapter 164, The more you know, the faster you'll die. 5. Su Yu frowned. Who? Could that be the invincible traitor? Or someone else? Forcing the multi-divine pros faction to erupt. For what? His appearance was an accident, so the other party shouldn't be interested in scheming against him. Thinking of this, Su Yu hurriedly said, will Grandmaster be alright? Also, Teacher Lu's side will be fine for the time being, right? If someone were to push him, it wouldn't be the three of them. It would only be the other two. Chen Yong shook his head, there's no need to worry too much about your Grandmaster's side. The key is still on Uncle Master Lu's side. However, Uncle Master has been in the Southern Yuan for many years, so under normal circumstances, he wouldn't leave the Southern Yuan. In the Southern Yuan, there are actually people keeping an eye on Uncle Master. Of course, under normal circumstances, no one would touch Uncle Master. That's good. Su Yu was relieved. Then, there wouldn't be any problems. After some thought, he asked, since there are people keeping an eye on Teacher Lu, why didn't anyone intervene when the Myriad Clan cult attacked the Southern Yuan? Chen Yong smiled bitterly. Keeping an eye on Uncle Master doesn't mean that they will help Uncle Master. Do you understand? Oh. Su Yu understood. Rather than keeping an eye on him, it was more like monitoring him. In any case, it didn't matter if Lu Wenyan wasn't dead or dead. He just needed to keep an eye on him. Su Yu also didn't expect that there would be so many twists and turns. It seemed that Chen Yong didn't intend to tell them at the beginning. Now that he said this, Su Yu roughly understood what he meant. Uncle Master, then what you mean is that it's best to maintain the previous state and continue to keep a low profile? He was a little suspicious now. Did Hong Tan and Chen Yong deliberately pretend to be turtles, so they never came out to do anything? Even if they were suppressed to the point where they could barely survive. Chen Yong thought for a moment and said, you're a newbie. If you want to do something, then do it. It's better to start with you than us. But everything that was said today, you choose to forget. Also, unless it's absolutely necessary, your grandmaster, even if he comes back, he won't go out to solve anything. After saying that, Chen Yong took a deep breath and said, do as you see fit. Perhaps, hiding all this while isn't a solution. If you show yourself, there might be some unexpected gains. However, senior uncle reminds you to be careful. Su Yu nodded. As expected, the more you know, the more dangerous it is. Next time, don't tell me everything. Can't you make me ignorant? You have to tell me. I'm a little afraid now. Seriously, my teacher hasn't known for so many years. Why does senior uncle have to tell me? Turning his head to look at Bai Feng was also thinking about this problem. Suddenly, he said, Senior brother, what do you mean? Why didn't you tell me back then? Today, this kid got into trouble, and you told me? Chen Yong slowly said, because, you can't do as much as him. It was that simple. Although you, Bai Feng, aren't a good person, everything is still under control. This disciple of yours. If you don't care for him in 3 days, he can break the heavens of the academy. Take a look for yourself. What did you do after coming to the academy for 2 months? What did you do to the single divine text department? Now, even Zhou Mingren, who was at the peak of the mountain and sea realm, was offended. Originally, Zhou Mingren just casually waved his hand and his subordinates went to deal with Su Yu. Now, Zhou Mingren probably had a very deep impression of Su Yu. All in all, what he said today had the intention of scaring Su Yu. He wanted him to be more obedient, or else everyone would not be able to hold on any longer. Bai Feng had an embarrassed look on his face. Looking down on me? You think I can't torment you? Then we'll see. When I get my innate divine prose out, it won't be a matter of the same academy. The entire human realm, the myriad realms, will think that I, Bai Feng, can torment you. Will I, Bai Feng, be inferior to this student of mine? Of course, Bai Feng knew that if he really got it out, it might be a big trouble. The research results of the 5th generation back then couldn't be this thing, right? After all, the research on the blood essence of innate techniques started from some of the information left behind by the 5th generation. Otherwise, Hong Tan wouldn't have been studying this all this time. P.S. The words are drowsy. I'll go and catch up on my sleep. I'll write after I wake up at night. I don't have much passion these 2 days. The words need to be full of passion. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 624. Chapter 624, Chapter 165. On the way back, thanks to Huan Yu for becoming the Golden Alliance once again. 1. The 3 of them chatted for a while. The 3 of them didn't mention anything about what happened before. These things were too far away from them, so it was pointless to mention them. Bai Feng suddenly thought of something and said, Little Yu, I asked you to call Uncle Master. Did you call him? Su Yu shook his head. There were many things to do, so how could he have the time to call him? Not to mention Teacher Lu, he didn't even go to Mansion Master Wan's place. He felt that the old man didn't have good intentions. Call him. Bai Feng said speechlessly, Uncle Master's divine text. Cough cough, I miss Uncle Master very much. You invited Uncle Master to be my guest, do you understand? You don't know any etiquette at all. Uncle Master has taught you for many years in vain. Su Yu was speechless. You just want to cut Lu Laoshi, so stop making excuses. Chen Yong glanced at Bai Feng, but he couldn't be bothered to say anything. He stood up and said, I have to go back. Jia is still waiting there. She might be in a hurry right now, so I'll leave first. Wuxia ran away with more than 8,000 merit points. Chen Yong knew her character. She was probably on the verge of tears right now, afraid that someone would snatch her away. That was too much. Ever since Wuxia entered the school, she had never seen so much money. Merit points, I'll transfer them to you later. Su Yu wanted to be magnanimous for once, but after thinking for a while, he realized that he really lacked merit points now. He smiled and said, "All right, Uncle Master, just transfer me 5,000 merit points. The rest is your labor fees. Someone will reimburse me." You. Chen Yong could not help but laugh. He had already guessed who it was. After thinking for a while, he said, "You can contact the Xia family, but don't go too deep." He reminded, the Xia family has also been in turmoil recently. Mansion Master Xia is in closed-door cultivation, preparing to become invincible. Once he breaks through, the great Xia Mansion Master will be re-elected. You have to know that there are too many people competing for the position of a Mansion Master. Chen Yong reminded, Xia Yuan is the most powerful candidate. Xia Yuan. Su Yu wanted to say something but hesitated. He had heard from Hu Zongqi the last time. Thinking of this, Su Yu said in a deep voice, "Uncle Master, someone said that Zhou Pingsheng wants to replace you as the curator. And the position of deputy curator is reserved for Xia Yuan. He has rebelled against him." At this moment, Bai Feng suddenly flew into a rage. Xia Yuan. I already said that all these years have passed. This year, the single Divine One faction suddenly targeted senior brother. It seems that this is the reason. Bai Feng snorted coldly. At this moment, he was extremely furious. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Xia Yuan. Your ambition isn't small. Why don't you see if you are worthy of becoming the manor head?" Su Yu looked at Bai Feng. This teacher of his rarely got angry. At most, he would be shocked and stunned for a moment. He had never seen anyone get angry before. At this moment, he seemed to be really angry. Seeing Su Yu looking at him, Bai Feng let out a soft snort and said angrily, "I admit that Xia Yuan's talent is extraordinary. His strength is also very strong. But this person is too black-hearted and too cold. If he becomes the manor head, the great Xia manor will definitely fall into chaos." He seemed to know something, but at this moment, he was unwilling to say anything more. He gritted his teeth and said, "Senior brother, even if we lose the position of the curator and give it to that trash Zhou Pingsheng, we still can't let Xia Yuan enter the venue. You think too highly of yourself. Why don't you take a look at yourself?" Chen Yong glanced at him. After thinking for a while, he said, "Xia Yuan is very talented and powerful. He has already entered the Lingyun realm. He even tried to rope you in before. Junior brother, there's no need to be so hostile towards him. Whoever becomes the mansion master of the great Xia mansion has nothing to do with us." Bai Feng said angrily, "I'm not someone who can't afford to lose." The two of them looked at him at the same time. Bai Feng was speechless. He said in a bad mood, all right. I just can't afford to lose. That bastard from Zhanjiang College beat me. Cough cough, beat me. Although I'm angry, I can still say that he's really powerful. Xia Yuan, that bastard, isn't a good person. Last time on the battlefield of the heavens, this bastard used a team of 100 guards as bait to fish for the powerhouses of 10,000 races. Damn it, I saw it with my own eyes. All the 100 guards died. This bastard used human lives to fish. After saying that, he continued, when I rushed over, that guy actually blamed me for alerting him. F***ck. After that, I went to the Demon Suppression Army to sue him. F***ck, that bastard actually said that he was carrying out his mission normally. F***ck. Bai Feng cursed a few times. Clearly, he was a little angry and dissatisfied in his heart. Using a team of 100 men guards to fish for the experts of all races. At this moment, Su Yu did not have a clear idea, but he was also somewhat disdainful. Just as he was thinking, Bai Feng suddenly said, Su Yu, what do you think you will do if that team of 100 man guards is led by your father? As soon as these words were said, Su Yu's expression changed. He had not had a clear feeling before, but in this instant, his eyes turned red. He said angrily, "Scum! Beast! How can such a person be worthy of being the manor head? He should be killed and fed to the dogs." "Beast, is this still a member of the Xia clan? The remnants of the 10,000 clans are more or less the same. If you meet him, just kill him." Bai Feng looked at Chen Yong and shrugged. "Did you see that? It's not that I'm jealous, but it's also not that I can't afford to lose. Look at your martial nephew, he's cursing even more fiercely than I am now." Su Yu was very angry. After being angry, suddenly, he said with some disappointment, "Just now, teacher said that he used the 100 men guards as bait. I actually didn't feel much. I even felt that if I really killed an expert of the Myriad clan, it would be worth it." Su Yu reflected on himself and said, "When teacher said that the 100 soldiers were led by my father, I suddenly understood that only those who suffered all this would know pain. If Xia Yuan used these 100 soldiers to kill Ling Yun from all the races and return to the great Xia mansion, others would only say that he was wise and divine. No one would care about the death of 100 ordinary soldiers." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 625. Chapter 625, Chapter 165. On the way back, thanks to Huan Yu for becoming the Golden General Alliance once again, too. Su Yu sighed. At this moment, he was suddenly at a loss. Was Xia Yuan wise and mighty? Perhaps some people would feel that way. Leading a 100-man guard led by Wanshi and killing Ling Yun without paying any price, was the military praising or praising? Was the great Xia mansion praising him? Most probably, it was praising him. At that time, who would consider killing 100 soldiers in battle? Bai Feng said that Xia Yuan was too evil and cold-hearted. Previously, Su Yu thought that he was jealous because he had always lost to Xia Yuan. However, when he thought about it again, he suddenly felt that it was not wrong for him to acknowledge Bai Feng as his teacher. This teacher of his. At least his heart was not that cold. Otherwise, there was no need for him to be hostile towards Xia Yuan. He had been beaten up by an expert from Zhangjin College. When he mentioned this person, he felt some admiration. Bai Feng was not someone who could not afford to lose. At this moment, Chen Yong also reflected on himself for a moment. When Bai Feng mentioned this scene, what did he think? Did he feel that Xia Yuan was cold-blooded? Perhaps, he did not think so. Chen Yong sighed and looked at Bai Feng and Su Yu. He nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. If it was before, he felt that he could interact with Xia Yuan. Now that he thought about it, it was probably not suitable. Bai Feng and Su Yu obviously wouldn't have anything in common with Xia Yuan. Perhaps they would change in the future, at least for now. There was still a heart that wasn't cold. I'll go back first. Xia Yuan will be back soon. Even if you're unhappy with him, don't provoke him now. Junior brother, you're the one who soared into the sky. Don't forget. Bai Feng snorted. What's wrong with soaring into the sky? Wait until my talent in divine prose is complete. Whatever Ling Yun, I'll still kill you. Su Yu was guessing whether Xia Yuan had reached an agreement with the single divine prose faction. Otherwise, why would the single divine prose faction charge forward for him? If that was the case, then what about Vice Mansion Master Xia Chongqing? This seemed to be an elder of Xia Yuan's faction. Chen Yong left. The moment he left, Bai Feng said unhappily, "You're causing trouble for me again. You brat, you're getting more and more powerful now. What kind of strength do you have? If you don't cultivate properly, you'll only know how to cause trouble." Su Yu had an innocent look on his face. Am I causing trouble? It's not that, all right. They're the ones who are causing trouble for me. Cultivate properly recently. I've already sent someone to look for your grand teacher. Oh right, quickly call Marshal Uncle and trick him to come over and study it for me. Su Yu was speechless. However, he could still make a call. It had been a while since he had contacted Teacher Lu. Su Yu took out his communication device and dialed a number. After waiting for a while, he shook his head and said, "There's no signal." No signal? By phone said in a speechless manner, the communication in the city is still fine. Why is there no signal? Then I don't know. Su Yu shook his head. Who knew? Perhaps the base station outside had been destroyed again. Forget it. You just stay here and cultivate. If you have nothing to do these days, don't go out. Got it. Su Yu did not say much. He had to cultivate well. When he got the 5,000 merit points, he would see if he could buy some blood essence and enter the mystic realm to cultivate, or he could cultivate the art first. His strength was still too weak. Beating Wang He, who was ranked 38th, had already made Su Yu feel great pressure. Even if the cultivation method was heaven rank, there was still a huge gap. Su Yu probably wasn't a match for those ranked below 30th. Text formula, 10,000 stones, outline divine text battle technique. Thinking of this, Su Yu had a headache. Why did he feel that there were so many things that he needed to cultivate? If he had known earlier, it wouldn't have been good to focus on cultivating the physical body. Would it not have been good to break 10,000 techniques with one move? Why did he need to learn divine text? Seriously. Thinking about it, Su Yu still felt that dual cultivation was better. Warriors were so rude. When they fought, they were not cool at all, and they were not friendly to others. Just as Su Yu's communication failed. On the way from Nan Yuan Academy to the Great Xia Manor. The old manor head of Nan Yuan Academy drove a tattered little truck, carrying Lu Wenyan as they drove forward. As he drove, he nagged, "Old Lu, you're getting old. Take it easy. With your current strength, what can you do when you go to the Great Xia Manor?" Lu Wenyan couldn't be bothered with him. Looking ahead, he was in a daze. It had been 50 years. In the past 50 years, he had never set foot in the Great Xia Manor city again. In the southern Yuan, he had stayed for 50 years. In the past 50 years, he hadn't contacted many people. When his old friend passed away, he had only mourned silently. But now, he was back. He felt that he shouldn't have returned at this time. He shouldn't have returned so quickly. But, someone forced him to return. Zhang Ruoling. He recalled the scene from the past. At that time, he was still in his prime. At that time, he was in high spirits. At that time, he felt that all heroes in the world were just so. I, Lu Wenyan, am able to rise to the skies in a battle of character and kill others in a battle of character. The top 100 rankers are within my grasp. My teacher, the strongest sun and moon of mankind. My teacher looked down upon the world, and his students were not inferior to him. Who could compete with his peers? I did not ascend into the sky, but I looked down upon the sky as if it was nothing. That year, my teacher failed to attain the Tao, and his martial uncles died one after another. My teacher returned, but he was brought back by the great Xia Emperor. All that was left was a trace of remains, leaving behind a piece of divine text. There was nothing. He was unwilling to accept this. He felt that there was a conspiracy. His teacher had once said that he was invincible in battle, that he was the strongest sun and moon of the myriad worlds. Anyone could have failed to achieve the Tao, but his teacher was the only one who could not. However, he still died. The few seniors who returned alive felt regret and unwillingness. In the end, they left with unwillingness. They were also unwilling to accept it. How could they fail? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 626. Chapter 626, Chapter 165. On the way back, thanks to Huanyu for becoming the Gold General Alliance once again. 3. Why were there two invincible ambushers of the 5th generation? That year, he refined his teacher's divine runes, wanting to recreate the glory of the 5th generation. However, the heavens played a huge joke on him. The divine runes were too strong, and his sea of consciousness was heavily damaged. The divine runes were damaged, and his body was shattered. In the past, he could fight and fly, but he could kill and fly. He had become a cripple with no strength to tie a chicken. That year, a group of good friends followed him on the same path. They were also unwilling and unconvinced. How could the 5th generation fail? Even if the two were invincible, they still felt that the 5th generation would not fail. The 5th generation would definitely be able to break through at the last minute. Killing the two invincible must have been a problem. Zhang Ruoling. Muttering, Lu Wenyan's eyes turned red. He was already dead. He had been dead for 9 years, and he still would not let him go. Divine runes, was it necessarily a good thing for the divine runes to be passed down? Before he left, he had taken the divine runes with him. He just didn't want to ruin the next one. Why didn't he understand? If he couldn't find a suitable candidate, he might as well take the divine runes underground and never see the light of day again. As he was deep in thought, a demonic beast appeared in front of him. The old principal was alarmed. The demonic beasts in the wild were in trouble. While he was deep in thought, a sword light flashed and the demonic beast was torn into pieces. In the next moment, a figure appeared in front of him. Teacher. The person who came looked very young. If Su Yu was here, he would be able to recognize him. He was the young man who had come to the arena 2 times. He was the young man who had stopped him from competing with Huang Qifeng and treated him kindly. Lu Wenyan looked at the young man and did not say a word. The old mansion master recognized him and said in surprise, Lu Chuan, it's you. This was Lu Wenyan's student, a student from a long time ago. If he counted, he was probably close to 50 years old. He just looked young. It was said that he had been stuck in the sky realm and worked as an assistant teacher in the Great Xia Civilization Academy. He had not returned to the Southern Yuan all these years. Why was he here? Greetings, Principal. The young man looked at the old principal, smiled, and greeted him. Then, he looked at Lu Wenyan. His eyes were slightly red as he said, Teacher, I'll open a path for you. Lu Wenyan looked at him for a long time before he slowly said, What are you getting involved in? What ability do you have to get involved? After entering the academy, you are no longer my student. I only taught you for a few years. Teacher. The young man said softly, I am not strong, but I am willing to be a pioneer for teacher. Many people in the Great Xia Civilization Academy are waiting for teacher's return. Return? Lu Wenyan laughed at himself and ignored him. He closed his eyes and said, Drive. The old manor head was a little flustered. As he drove, he shouted, Lu Chuan, go back. I will send your teacher back. I am an old man. You can go back. Lu Chuan didn't say a word and instantly disappeared from his spot. In front, the faint sounds of killing could be heard. Old Lu. The old manor head looked at Lu Wenyan and said in a low voice, What's the situation? You informed him yourself. Are you pretending to be me? Lu Wenyan opened his eyes and rolled his eyes at him. Scram. He knew who informed him. Other than that crazy woman, there was no one else. He couldn't be bothered to say anything else. He had nothing to say to this old man. At the same time. Further ahead. Wu Qi killed a man with a sword. He chuckled and said, What's the matter with the Myriad clan cult? Seriously, you made me come all the way here. It's none of your business that he's back. Aunt's lover. Uncle. Wu Qi made himself laugh. Further ahead. In the air, a figure flickered. In the next moment, a figure appeared. It was Wu Yuehua. Wu Yuehua sneered and looked into the air. What? You want to stop him from returning? What a joke. Wu Yuehua. In the air, an old woman walked out. She said coldly, Lu Wenyan was banished and banished. For the past 50 years, he has been banished to the southern Yuan and is not allowed to leave. Back then, there was an agreement that he would take the 5th-generation mansion master, Shen Wen, and never return to the Great Xia mansion. Unless he proves that he can recover the losses of the past. The old woman was none other than Elder Yu Hong. The dispute during the day had already ended. When Wu Yuehua mentioned the matter of digging up the grave, Zhou Mingren guessed that Lu Wenyan might know about it. As expected, Lu Wenyan was about to return. He can return if he wants to. You bunch of scum actually want to dig up Zhang Ruoling's grave. Then give it a try. As long as you dare, I will slaughter you and fill up the grave. Wu Yuehua, don't be too arrogant. Wu Yuehua sneered. In the next moment, the void exploded, and space collapsed. A moment later, Wu Yuehua walked out. Blood dripped from the corner of the old woman's mouth. She coughed lightly and spat out a mouthful of blood. Trash. Wu Yuehua sneered. Without turning her head, she said disdainfully, to think that you're a fellow cultivator of the same generation. A trash. So what if it's the mountains and seas? The divine pill system will still suppress you. The old woman didn't say anything. A moment later, another person appeared in the space ahead of them. Elder Sun took a step forward and said softly, Yuehua, Lu Wenyan cannot return. At least not now. Humph. Wu Yuehua snorted and looked down on him. At the same time, another space fluctuation appeared. A middle-aged man walked out. His face was slightly pale. He coughed and said, Elder Sun, don't block the way. You and Yu Hong can't do it. As for Elderly, he probably can't come. Elder Sun's expression changed slightly. What did you do to Elderly? Nothing. He's not feeling well and returned to the academy early. The middle-aged man laughed and said slowly, that's enough. Big Brother Lu has kept his promise all these years and has been staying in the southern Yuan. If it weren't for you guys going overboard, he wouldn't have returned now. Elder Sun's expression fluctuated. After a long time, he said in a deep voice, I might not agree with old Zhou's actions. However, a living person is better than a dead person. Zhang Ruoling's divine inscriptions can save Yiming. Zhang Ruoling died from illness. Since that's the case, it's also a pity that the divine inscriptions are with him. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 627. Chapter 627, Chapter 165. On the way back, thanks to Huan Yu for becoming the Gold General Alliance once again, for Bulsh *T. Wu Yuehua sneered, if you die, can I dig out your divine text? Elder Sun said calmly, if I really die, you can dig it out. I don't even need you to dig it out. I can stay behind myself. Do you have to stop us? Wu Yuehua was too lazy to talk to him. Her expression was ugly. Elder Sun said softly, ask Lu Wenyan to return. The current academy was no longer the academy from 50 years ago. The 5 generations had already exhausted everything in the Great Xia Academy of Civilization. Because of the 5 generations, the Great Xia Academy of that year was almost completely destroyed. Could it be that Lu Wenyan would repeat the same mistake when he returned? Well said. Wu Yuehua said coldly, if you ask Zhou Mingren to give up on digging graves, Lu Wenyan can return. Otherwise, we'll wait for him to return and open another courtyard. Let's have a good fight. Elder Sun said softly, Yuehua, your mother and I were good friends in the past." Wu Yuehua laughed scornfully. She looked down on him. "Unless Lu Wenyan really recovers and even advances to the mountain and sea realm, he doesn't have any capital or qualifications to open another courtyard." Elder Sun shook his head and said, "Don't be wishful thinking. That person from the Great Zhou Manor is about to advance to invincible. He once said that after advancing to invincible, he would take back everything that happened in the past. You caused his father to die in the battle of the heavens. This debt hasn't been settled yet." Wu Yuehua's expression changed slightly. Elder Sun said again, "If Lu Wenyan doesn't jump now, that person might not bother with him. But since he jumped out, that person definitely won't let him off easily." Zhou clan of the Great Zhou clan. They were even more powerful than the Great Xia clan. However, 50 years ago, the brother of the Great Zhou king died in battle, and the Great Zhou clan lost an invincible expert. They had been silent for many years. Now, the Great Zhou clan was about to give birth to a second invincible expert. And it was an invincible expert who had a grudge against the Duo Shenwen clan. Wu Yuehua's expression changed, and she gritted her teeth and said, "So what if he has advanced? Shouldn't he go and seek revenge from that invincible expert of the Celestial clan? It's not like the 5th generation killed his father and vented his anger on the Duo Shenwen clan. It's just a joke." Elder Sun calmly said, "I don't know if he will look for it or not. But that year, his father died in the celestial battlefield in order to save the 5th generation. After that, when the 5th generation was dying, he told the Zhou family that he would share his research materials with them. In the end, his senior brothers took it for themselves." Wu Yuehua angrily said, "Nonsense. There is no information at all. When the 5th generation was dying, he only said that he would remember the favor of the rescue parties. He didn't say anything else, so how could he share the Zhou family's research materials with them?" Elder Sun said indifferently, "I didn't say that. Yuehua, you have to understand that these are the words of the Zhou family." "So what if it's the Zhou family?" Wu Yuehua said coldly, "This is the Great Xia mansion, and you are working for the Zhou family? Zhou Mingren is only a branch of the Zhou family. He is the peak of the mountain and sea realm, so how can he be a dog for the Zhou family?" Elder Sun frowned, "No one is a dog for anyone. However, the many divine languages have been silenced. The Great Zhou mansion has completely banned the many divine languages. Now that Lu Wenyan has returned, it will only aggravate the conflict. Cut the crap. If he returns today, no one will be able to stop him." With a stern shout, in the next moment, an incomparably huge medicinal cauldron appeared. With a rumble, it smashed through the void and headed toward Pavilion Master Sun to suppress him. Behind him, the middle-aged man's figure flickered as he stood in front of Yu Hong. He smiled and said, "Pavilion Master Yu, it's best that you don't interfere. Today, Big Brother Lu is returning. You won't be able to stop him." At the same time, there were people stopping him in every direction. Battles were breaking out. On a high mountain. Xia Hu asked curiously, "Second grandpa, Lu Wenyan hadn't even left back then. Where did he get so many connections and such a powerful prestige? Are they all waiting for him to come back? If he doesn't come back, these people don't seem to have any movements at all." Lord Xia Ho said lazily, "First, orthodox. He is the successor of the 5th generation. He is the direct descendant and the first disciple of the founding sect. Therefore, he will inherit the legacy of the 5th generation. Number 2, his contemporaries have all grown up, and his contemporaries were all his good friends and comrades in the past. Number 3, this fellow is truly a monster. He once cultivated his character and soared into the sky, and the ones he beheaded were not those who had just entered the sky. During the period of the 5th generation, all the people under the mountains and seas of the multi-divine literature series were his underlings. Number 4, when this fellow was not crippled, he was a fool. He did not cherish the resources of the multi-divine literature series. He threw them around like a fool, arrogant beyond belief. In the end, not to mention, the resources he threw out resulted in the emergence of many experts. Fifth, Lu Wenyan didn't come from the orphanage. He came from a big family, the Lu family. The Lu family? Xia Huyo was slightly stunned and said, "Which Lu family?" Lord Xia Ho said speechlessly, "Which Lu family can it be?" "The Lu family that almost became your wife in the past." "The Lu family." Xia Huyo said in surprise, "Lu Wenyan came from the Lu family." "But the Lu family has already been destroyed." "Not all of them." Lord Xia Ho said lazily, "In the battle 50 years ago, the Lu family lost a sun and moon. In the battle of the heavens 30 years ago, a few more mountains and seas died. In the battle 18 years ago, a few more mountains and seas and the sun and moon died. Although they are almost destroyed, there are still some people alive." "Isn't Lu Wenyan still alive?" "The Lu family has killed countless enemies in the battlefield of the heavens." "How many people have they saved?" "Right now, Lu Wenyan is still alive. He is probably one of the few who are still alive. Those who have been saved should be treated with some respect." Xia Huyo said in surprise, "He is actually from the Lu family." "No wonder. No wonder no one has dared to touch him for so many years." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 628. Chapter 628, Chapter 165. On the way back, thanks to Big Brother Huanyu for once again becoming the Gold General Alliance. 5. Lord Xiaoho said with a smile, "No one dares to touch it. That's because it's not easy to touch it. If you touch it, it'll be troublesome. However, it's fine if Lu Wenyan obediently hides in the southern Yuan, but now he has to come out. Once he comes out, all the experts will know. Many people don't want the Divine One faction to rise again, understand?" "Why?" Xia Huyo said speechlessly, "Just because of the Zhou clan. The Zhou clan is far away in the Great Zhou Manor. This is our Great Xia Manor, our Xia clan's territory. How can it be the Zhou clan's turn to act atrociously?" "Nonsense." Lord Xia Ho said unhappily, "What do you mean by they are acting atrociously in our clan? This matter is not easy for the Xia clan to manage. Back then, Zhou Zhan did die in the heavenly battlefield in order to save the 5 generations. The great Zhou king did not say anything, and your great-grandfather is also not easy to deal with. Let the juniors settle this grudge on their own." In the end, Lu Wenyan was crippled, and Zhou Zhan's son now has a chance to become invincible. "Tell me, how can our family be easy to manage?" Xia Huyo nodded. He said somewhat gloomily, "That's not easy to manage, but this Zhou family is also quite overbearing. Didn't they say that they did not have any information on advancing to become a civilized master forever? Why do they insist on pestering them and suppressing them for 50 years? What are they doing? Whether they have it or not, who knows?" Lord Xiaoho smiled and said, "Not to mention other things, I've actually always suspected that the so-called advancement information of the 5th generation might not be any real information. It's very likely that it's that divine text. There are many people who have the same thoughts as me. It's just that they have some misgivings and can't directly make a move on Lu Wenyan." Xia Huyo's face was filled with astonishment. Lord Xia Ho curled his lips. He said indifferently, "Therefore, suppressing the multiple divine languages is not an individual's idea. It is the idea of many people who want to force Lu Wenyan to take the initiative to hand over that divine language. Silly boy, don't look at things from the surface. The Zhou family may not be overbearing, and they may not really want to suppress the multiple divine languages. It is just that everyone chose to do so at the same time, pushing the Zhou family to the surface. The Zhou family was too lazy to explain. They probably really coveted this divine rune, so they let nature take its course and became the leader of the single divine runes. Xia Huyo nodded. He had learned a lot. So that was the case. Lord Xia Ho chuckled and said, "This is nothing. Lu Wenyan has not returned yet. If he really has returned, it means that he has given up on the leisurely life of the southern Yuan. There will be a lot of trouble in the future." Xia Huyo frowned and said, "Second Grandpa, is it really appropriate for the internal strife to be so fierce? The strength of the great Xia manor will also be weakened. Look at now, even the pavilion elders of the civilized academy are fighting among themselves." Lord Xia Ho exhaled, he said softly, "Internal strife, actually, it doesn't count. It can be considered a struggle before integration. The two holy grounds intended to integrate the various manors, unite the strength of the human race, and form a common body on the heavenly battlefield. There will be many such struggles in the future. When there is a winner, the various manors will have a deeper level of cooperation." "There is such a thing?" Xia Huyo said in surprise. "Does that mean that the shadow of the various manors is behind the fierce battle?" "Of course." Lord Xia nodded and said with a smile, "It's not just the great Xia manors that are like this. The other manors have also experienced this situation. It's just a battle. In the end, whoever wins will have more say. Can't we join forces?" "Silly boy, you overestimate the hearts of the people. Joining forces isn't that simple. Let me ask you, I'm making the Xia family listen to the Zhou family now. Do you agree?" "No." Xia Huyo said it so straightforwardly that Xiahou Yi couldn't help but laugh. "Isn't that the end? Then what's the situation with our family? I feel like we didn't participate in it." "Our family, who said we didn't participate?" Xiahou Yi yawned and said, "Xia Chongqing, Xia Yuan, Xia Yinqi, aren't these people all members of the Xia family?" "What do you mean our family didn't participate in it?" Xia Huyo blinked his eyes. "Why do I feel like I'm actually enemies with Su Yu? Our old Xia family, especially Xia Yuan's side, seems to be preparing to seize Qin Yong's position as the head of the academy." I scratched my head. "Forget it, what has it got to do with me?" Everywhere, there were still battles going on. Some people were still trying to stop Lu Wenyan from returning. On this day, a small shabby car drove toward the great Xia manor. On this day, many experts received the news. Many experts from various academies packed their luggage and headed towards the great Xia manor. A storm was brewing. 50 years ago, the fifth generation failed. Lu Wenyan, who was supposed to be the sixth generation, also failed. Instead, he crippled himself. Now, Lu Wenyan had returned. No matter what, many people decided to do it again, watch it again, and wait for it again. P.S. Thank Huan Yu for his gold. Today's condition isn't good, and he's even weaker. Huan Yu probably doesn't mind adding more. He doesn't read books, so adding more is fine. Thank him. As for the online chat records, I won't admit it, I'll deny it, I didn't say it, my memory isn't good. Anyway, it's just a lot of denial. If my condition is better, I'll write some more big plots. Today's chapter was all a hoax, it didn't meet my expectations, I'm sorry. These few sentences don't charge, it's limited to 200 words, no charge. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 629. Chapter 629, Chapter 166. Trouble is coming, thanks to the silver tip from the big brother Beiji of the flying family. 1. Great Xia Institute of Civilization. Man-Tam Research Center. There's a lot going on out there, but inside the research center, it's peaceful. In the school, Suyu does not have too big sense of crisis. Civilized institute, at least there are rules, and Wan Tiansheng is a rule-abiding people, even if the last time robbed Jing Yunhui blood essence, also because in the rules, that is illegal trade of stolen goods. Of course, he had broken through Hong Tan's blockade and directly summoned Su Yu. This did not follow the rules. At this moment, Su Yu had once again entered the detention area. In the basement. The great demons were already used to it. When they sensed Su Yu's movements, they were even a little happy. He had actually come so early. It had only been 7 days, yet Su Yu had actually come. Under normal circumstances, wasn't he supposed to come only after 10 days? The rule of feeding once every 3 days had become an extravagant hope. The few great demons had never had any hope at all. Su Yu opened the door and went down the stairs. The few great demons were all overjoyed. Each and every one of them had made some movements. It was impossible not to make any movements. The fire crow, who had not made any movements the first time, was still regretting the loss of 1 yuan chi liquid. The moment he entered, the white raccoon said anxiously, "Brother Su Yu, did you get merit points for the cultivation techniques I wrote for you last time?" Su Yu smacked his forehead and said with a laugh, "I forgot. I had too many things to do recently. I was doing research with teacher and forgot to change things. Next time." The white raccoon was immediately depressed. It forgot. It was still wondering if it could get an extra drop of yuan chi liquid this time, but Su Yu had actually forgotten. This fellow was really forgetful. It was no wonder that he often forgot to feed them. Su Yu was too lazy to say anything more. He took a drop of yuan chi liquid from a demon and then looked at cage number 1, where the waterman was. "Number 1, how was your chat?" The waterman took human form, but there were no facial features on his face. His voice was as gentle as ever. "What do you want to talk about?" "Water element formula." Su Yu did not stand on ceremony and said directly, "Recently, the research center has been preparing to try to derive the basic text formulas that humans can use. I mean, they can be used at the recuperation stage. The 5 elemental races seem to be good at this kind of cultivation method. Your water element technique is the cultivation method used to open the divine aperture. You should know it, right?" The Aquaman said gently, "I told you last time. These cultivation methods are something that we are born with. We are born with some divine apertures. As for the specific apertures that we have opened, we don't know either. Moreover, the sea of will is different from the sea of will. You can open my divine apertures, but not the humans. You humans have killed many 5 elements clansmen, so you should know this." Su Yu nodded slightly, he smiled and said, "I understand. But I still want to give it a try. All civilized masters are like this, who doesn't want to give it a try? Once you derive the basic formula, it will leave a lasting name. Wealth, status, and fame will quickly surge." The Aquaman was silent for a while. After a while, he said, "Do you want me to tell you the profound meaning of the water element formula? It doesn't count." Su Yu smiled and said, "You don't have to tell me the specific details of how to enlighten me. But tell me some of the process and some of the things that are a little bit too far-fetched. I prefer to deduce things in reverse. Perhaps it can give me some inspiration." The great demons wanted to laugh. "You are just a nurturing student. What a big tone. You actually want to deduce the 5 elements clan's text formula. One had to know that even if this thing was invincible, it could not be deduced just because it was deduced. Otherwise, all the cultivation methods of the 10,000 clans would have been deciphered long ago. Different races and different structures resulted in different cultivation methods. The water element technique had opened 36 apertures. Even the water people themselves might not know which divine aperture of the human race corresponded to. One sea of consciousness could not be messed with. One moment of carelessness and one sea of consciousness would collapse. The sea of consciousness was very powerful, but it was also very fragile. If one opened the wrong divine aperture, it would be like a bottle being pierced, and it would leak. This thing was much more difficult to open than the physical body's apertures, and it was also much more dangerous. Otherwise, after all these years, the human race would not have only released the Wanwen Jing, this basic text of the soaring realm. If you want to mock Su Yu, hold it in. Xuan Ni's temper was originally the most fiery. If it was in the past, he would have ridiculed Su Yu crazily long ago. But today, he was very obedient. He did not say anything and just snickered. He laughed at Su Yu for overestimating his own strength. He laughed at him for being too ambitious. Su Yu did not care about these things. Indeed, he only needed a few things that were a little bit out of the ordinary. Some understanding of the cultivation method, some understanding of the process, so that he could write a true cultivation method. It was not like what he was doing now. He only knew how to open the aperture and where to open it. As for why he opened this aperture and why he had to open it here, he had no idea at all. These past few days, Su Yu had read quite a few books and read quite a few cultivation techniques. He felt that he could probably write down a template, but without some comprehension of the true 5-element formula, the template that he wrote down wasn't very realistic, and it was easy for experts to see through the flaws. The water man was the best teacher. Cultivation techniques couldn't be casually passed down, but it didn't mean that they wouldn't be passed down. Su Yu had some plans in his heart. Some cultivation techniques would be passed down sooner or later. How to pass it down, whether he could benefit from it, and whether he could ensure his own safety was the key. Seeing that he was interested, the water man smiled and didn't mind saying a few more words. The sea of will is actually the same as the body. Whether it's the divine aperture or the body aperture, they are all a passage connected to the outside world. The more passages open, the faster the cultivation speed will be. Why can't humans cultivate the Wanwen Jing? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 630. Chapter 630, Chapter 166, Trouble is Coming, thanks to Baiyin, the Flying Clan's big shot Beiji for the tip, 2. Shui Ren said slowly, because the sea of consciousness is too weak at this moment. Humans are in the recuperation stage, and their sea of consciousness is not as strong as ours. We can open our God apertures, but that doesn't mean that you can do it too. The God apertures opened by the Wanwen Sutra are only suitable for soaring. There are also different God apertures. Some locations are difficult to discover, some have a more intense opening process, and some will cause the sea of consciousness to shake. Waterman did not mind talking more about this with Su Yu. Su Yu was happy to hear it. After staying for a long time, it was good to give more yuan qi liquid. He was not afraid of starving to death, but with more yuan qi liquid, he could accumulate more strength. Gradually, Su Yu had a clearer idea. He took out his little notebook and recorded it bit by bit. At this moment, Su Yu looked like a student, while Shui Ren became a teacher. Looking at him writing down the information seriously with a serious face and asking questions from time to time, at this moment, the detention area seemed to have become a classroom. The atmosphere was peaceful, and it did not look like a prison. Then, if you named the 36 divine apertures opened by the water element technique as water 1 aperture to water 36 apertures, what would you feel after opening water 1 aperture? The water person paused for a moment. He replied, opening the first divine aperture, the most crucial thing at this moment is to stabilize the sea of consciousness. Opening the first divine aperture will often cause the sea of consciousness to fluctuate, and at this moment, by absorbing some scattered willpower, you can feel a slight swelling pain. Opening 1 aperture, you can absorb a little willpower. Yes, but it's considered a passive one, just like your Kaiyuan. It's just a little faster than before. Su Yu nodded and continued asking. The waterman answered them one by one. After asking for a long time, Su Yu threw in a drop of yuan qi liquid and said with a smile, "Thank you very much. I'll continue asking you if you don't understand next time." When I derive the water movement technique that is suitable for humans, I'll give you a great merit. The Aquamancer did not want to continue. If you can derive it, I'll turn myself into dirty water. Just as he was about to leave, the Diamond Mountain Bull saw that he was about to leave and hurriedly said, "Su Yu, I haven't given you mine." Su Yu turned his head to look. This bull's words were simple and honest, but his heart was not good. "You haven't. I'll starve you for a month." Su Yu did not stand on ceremony and said, "I asked someone the last time. Your blood essence is in trouble." The blood essence of the king of the Diamond Mountain Bulls might contain some willpower and vitality. There was a possibility of reincarnation from a drop of blood. "You actually didn't remind me." "Why? Are you trying to trick me?" Su Yu said unhappily, "Do you think I'm an idiot? If I don't understand myself, wouldn't I ask someone?" "You're being wronged." The Diamond Mountain Bulls let out a miserable cry. 1 month. It was over. He would really starve to death. "I'm just soaring in the sky. How could I have the ability to be reborn with a drop of blood?" "Su Yu, even if the Mountain Ox clan has this ability, it's not something I can master." "Cut the crap." Su Yu could not be bothered with it. He cursed, "The more honest a fellow is, the more insidious he is. You're even worse than the Swan Ni. Although the Swan Ni isn't honest, at least it gave me a heaven-rank martial skill. Swan Ni was innocent. How am I not honest? I have been very honest recently. Look at me. I have not been yelling recently. I am just waiting for you to release the vitality liquid." How obedient. Su Yu did not say much and quickly left. After he left, the detention area was silent for a moment. After a moment, Shui Ren chuckled, "Stupid cow, you have suffered a loss." The mountain drill cow did not want to speak. The shadow also said faintly, "He may not have much knowledge, but as he said, he can ask others." Su Yu doesn't look stupid. Also, have you noticed? His strength seems to have improved a lot. It hasn't. Swan and I questioned, "I observed it for a while. Although I can't probe, but from the looks of the body, it doesn't absorb yuan qi very quickly. It's still at the middle stage of Qianjun, right? Mid-stage of the Thousand June realm?" The shadow said faintly, "Definitely not. Shui Ren probably has a feeling that Su Yu seems to have hidden some acupuncture points. It should be the effect of divine runes. It's somewhat similar to our Shadow Clan's divine runes. His true strength isn't just at the mid-stage." Shui Ren turned into a puddle of water once again as his voice sounded, "That's right, he's probably at the late stage." The few great demons fell silent. That fellow had improved very quickly. Combined with heaven-rank martial techniques, he was probably one of the top existences in the Thousand June realm. He was very talented. He came to ask about the formula today. Could it be that he really has the intention to derive the formula? The shadow was somewhat puzzled. This was very, very difficult. There was a group of experts in the quest boundary who specialized in doing this. Or rather, there was a group of people in all the universities doing this. Su Yu also wanted to do this big project. Wasn't he afraid of delaying his cultivation? The others couldn't give an answer, so who knew what Su Yu was thinking? Just as Su Yu was preparing to write a formula and speed up his cultivation. Heart Cultivation Pavilion. In Zhou Mingren's courtyard. Lu Hong's forehead was covered in sweat. After a long time, he struggled and said, "Dean, it's my fault. I quoted senior brother Zhou 82,000 merit points, but in reality, the transaction price was 80,000 merit points. I profited from it." Lu Hong seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure. Under Zhou Mingren's direct gaze, he confessed his embezzlement. 80,000 merit points. Zhou Mingren repeated this sentence. In his heart, he had made a rough judgment. 80,000 merit points, it should be true. Su Yu's words could not be completely believed, but Zhou Pingsheng had said 100,000 merit points. Zhou Mingren sighed in his heart. He already understood that his student was greedy for a total of 18,000 merit points. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 631. Chapter 631, Chapter 166, Trouble is Coming, thanks to the Baiyin reward from the Baijia boss of the Flying Clan, 3. How dare he? What a huge appetite. 18,000 merit points. Zhou Pingsheng was really bold. How would he dare? One had to know that it was already considered pretty good for a Ling Yun realm cultivator to get 1,000 merit points in a year. This was the reward for his job. Zhou Pingsheng had swallowed more than 10,000 merit points in one breath. If the other elders found out about this, it would be a huge problem. Thinking to himself, Zhou Mingren did not show it on his face. He said calmly, "It's normal to be selfish when handling matters. 2,000 merit points is not a small amount. I can forgive you once, but I want to know, is that information true or false?" Lu Hong's sweat dripped down. "Dean, I really don't know." Senior brother Zhou was present to watch everything that happened that day. Senior brother's eyesight was better than mine, and he was more knowledgeable than me. Furthermore, it wasn't just senior brother. Xia Sini from the Xia family was also present that day. Xia Sini was also prepared to make a trade. It was obvious that Xia Sini had also judged it to be true. Xia Sini was Marquis Xia's son and Xia Chan's father. A powerhouse at the 9th level of Ling Yun. Furthermore, he was a member of the Xia family's trading company. He was very knowledgeable. If he thought that it was true, how could it be false? Zhou Mingren rubbed his temples gently. After a long while, he said, "Let's try it again for a while. However, if it's a trap set by Su Yu and the others, the probability of it being true is too low. The probability of it being false." In reality, he had already determined that it was false. He was only carrying the last glimmer of hope. He couldn't say that it was fake right now. Otherwise, Zhou Pingsheng, who was in charge of this matter, would be in a lot of trouble. The elders wouldn't just let it go with a word. It was a total of 100,000 merit points. This wasn't just a small amount. Moreover, there were a lot of troubles now. A group of people were looking for him to ask for the article of will. Some of them could choose not to give it to him, and some, they had to give it to him. Because of Su Yu, a large number of troubles had appeared. Thinking of this, Zhou Mingren opened his mouth and said, "Su Yu. I don't know if it was his own idea, or Chen Yong, Bai Feng, and the others' idea, or Lu Wenyan was behind it. No matter what, this time, Su Yu has disgraced the single divine pros faction. If we don't punish him severely, then he will lose face." Lu Hong hurriedly said, "Director, he is still in a good mood, and he is not on the top 100 list. It will be very difficult for us to make a move against him." Zhou Mingren said indifferently, "Can't you do anything about it? Don't tell me that a group of people is stumped by a child." Lu Hong said with an embarrassed expression, I do have some ideas. I'm just afraid that principal will think that I'm daydreaming." "Speak. Let him enter the soaring stage." Lu Hong said embarrassedly, "We're in a state of recuperation, so it'll be very difficult to stumble him. But it's different when he enters the soaring realm. We have many assistants in the soaring realm, and those in the soaring realm are all researchers, so there aren't too many restrictions. If it really can't be done, we can throw him into the heavenly battlefield." Lu Hong quickly said, "Right, Dean, I think it's best to let him enter the Sea of Consciousness secret realm. How many divine inscriptions does he have? If he couldn't control one and directly entered the sky, that would be interesting." Should the multi-divine inscriptions department expel him or not? Lu Hong said excitedly. Their department didn't complete the drawing of the divine inscriptions battle technique and entered the sky. Then it wouldn't count as the multi-divine inscriptions department. Su Yu's willpower had reached the peak of recuperation. How could he endure and not enter the sky? When the time comes, should we expel him or continue to take him in? If we take him in, is it still the same as having more divine runes? Then it'll become a joke. Lu Hong was getting more and more enthusiastic as he spoke. Su Yu has gotten used to it by leaps and bounds. If we let him be stuck at the peak of recuperation for a few years or even more than 10 years, would he be willing? When the time comes, if Bai Feng and the others don't allow him to advance, the two sides might turn against each other. Zhou Mingren frowned slightly. Then what if he can endure it? Dean, he can't sketch the divine runes that fast. Divine runes. Zhou Mingren thought of something. Wan Tianxing said that if Su Yu wanted to sketch the divine runes of the human race, if he only wanted to sketch the divine runes of the human race, then Su Yu could only sketch this type of divine runes. His speed would be slowed down, and he couldn't sketch the other divine runes. Even if he could, he would have to smash it himself. Thus, if Su Yu wanted to outline more than 10 divine languages, then it would be even more troublesome. Do you know how many divine languages he has? Lu Hong shook his head and said, I'm not sure, but I feel that this guy is even more talented than Bai Feng. He has at least 12 divine languages, or even more. You see, Chen Yong has been cowardly all this time, and now he has come out to protect him. This kid is definitely very talented. Zhou Mingren nodded. That was true. To allow him to advance to the sky. Lu Hong's thoughts were rather interesting. Lu Hong continued, Principal, actually, our goal isn't Su Yu right now. Su Yu's combat strength is still very strong, but his senior sister, Wuxia, is the key. Principal, the two children are actually not our goal. Our goal is Chen Yong. Chen Yong's position as the head of the library pavilion is our original goal. Sniping Chen Yong, that was our goal. No matter how strong Wuxia and Su Yu were, they would not be able to achieve anything. Zhou Mingren gently exhaled and nodded. That's right. Chen Yong's position needs to be vacated. Xia Yuan has already entered the Great Zhou Manor. In another month or so, he will be back. Xia Yuan is coming back. Lu Hong was shocked, but he did not show it on his face. He only said hesitantly, Dean, after all, he is not a member of our single Divine One faction. Do we really want to cooperate with him? He has a high chance of becoming the next mansion master of the Great Xia Mansion. In the Great Xia Mansion, the Xia family is the king. As long as he becomes the mansion master, the department of the single divine language will have a chance to progress further.